In this world, everyone has the opportunity to become a god. Anyone can be classified with their divine power into the following categories: divine creatures, demigods, true gods, principal gods, and god kings. When a person comes of age at 18, they awaken in the divine realm and then enter their own main clan. The clans also have different levels, and talented people can enter a clan with greater potential, later evolving into superior gods. Hanwoo is one of those people who awakened to the divine realm, but received only the lowest possible residue level. The story begins in a high school, where a bully is fighting with the protagonist, saying, "How dare he speak that way," and claiming he has never lost before, so he must hand over the divine power. Otherwise, he will have his divine domain core destroyed. This bully is named Jung Bin and is a powerful assassin at the school, with 5,000 members in his main army. Hanwoo responds that there is no divine power, and that if he has one, then it depends solely on him to take it. The protagonist says that Jung Bin is nothing more than a mere member of the Locust clan. This makes him reflect on why on earth he is challenging the school bully, and it all started days ago when he traveled to the divine realm, where everyone can become gods. He imagines that the owner of that body is a scoundrel, a pitiful creature who awakened to the divine realm at 18 years of age but received only the Locust clan. A bedridden person tells Hanwoo that his parents are lost in the chaos of the Imperial College and are probably still alive, so if an opportunity arises in the future, he should try to find them. He also remembers when a girl named Qin Shuang asked him if he was willing to become her slave and provide enough locusts to feed her Thunderbird every day. She would ensure he graduated from high school, so he should think very carefully about it. Meanwhile, the bullies order him to always provide 100 divine powers on Monday at school, and if he doesn't, he will have to deal with the dwarf army invading and killing his entire clan, thus ruining his bright future. All of this makes the protagonist ponder how he could start this game on hell difficulty, and in this way, if he continues in the Locust clan, he will never be able to enter the best Imperial universities, much less find his missing parents. This makes him think that his top priority right now is to pass the Yellow Knights massacre, but that's not his style. He enters the machine and puts on the accessory, saying that everyone managed to get where they are, so giving up without even trying is pathetic. With this in mind, he decides to connect to the divine domain until a notification appears that the login was successful. He is surprised, as that world is vast. He observes for a moment and notices the thousands of locusts from his main clan. He opens his system screen to check some of his data, see if there have been any updates, and says that according to his past life's memories, it seems there are only two options: the chosen son and the life sacrifice, and he is confused about what the difference between the two is. Asking the system what it is about, the chosen son of heavenly selection is one chosen by heaven to bring good luck. For each level raised, an additional ability with unique attributes is obtained. Meanwhile, the life sacrifice can sacrifice his biological life in exchange for products of equal value. The exchange products are generated randomly during the sacrifice process. This makes him thoughtful, as the chosen son of heaven should be his golden finger. Meanwhile, the life sacrifice is an additional ability he will acquire with unique attributes during the divine biological stage. Thus, with these incredible powers, he will be able to work hard to fulfill his grandfather's last wish. However, his biggest concern at the moment is to get through the school bully's blackmail the next day. At this moment, he notices something on his system screen, as there was a lot of additional information. He observes all the benefits listed in the system until he finally understands how it works. With this in mind, he decides to take a high risk, and if he wins, he wants the system to become his master. But if he loses, it will be a complete waste. The next day arrives, and already at school, Qin Shuang walks up to the protagonist table, asking if he has thought about becoming her slave, making it clear that she will ensure no one will bully him until he graduates from high school. Hanwoo says his answer is no, leaving her indignant as she doesn't understand why he gave that answer. After all, without her protection, he will be massacred to death by some group of people. He smiles and says that maybe that is the situation. However, although he has no power or influence, he still has his own dignity, and despite understanding that she wants to protect him, he will not accept any of it. She turns around and says he will regret this situation. He takes a deep breath, but then the group of bullies approaches his table, asking if he brought the 100 divine powers they asked for, and if he doesn't deliver soon, he will deeply regret it. The protagonist tells them to stop bothering him, which makes Jungbin furious, as it seems he is crazy to talk like that, and if he doesn't hand over the divine powers now, he will have his domain core destroyed. He responds that he wants to see him try. The bully is surprised, as Hanwoo is tougher that day, and it's hard to understand why. He also looks to the side and notices that Qin Shuang seems not to intervene. The other students start shouting for them to fight in the game. After all, they have never seen what a broken core looks like. One of them also says that the Locust clan is always dropping in level, so it will be easy to eliminate him and make him leave the school. They say that Jungbin's dwarf army can rank among the top 60 in the school, so it will be amazing to see that. The bully takes his card and tells the protagonist that he is looking for death, so later he can't blame him for not giving him a chance. Besides, he says that to deal with trash, he doesn't need to use more than 10 divine points. This is the intrusion card worth 10 divine power points. After blocking the target, a spatial teleportation portal will be generated within the target's divine domain, thus being able to invade the divine domain. Hanwoo immediately flies through the portal until he finally arrives in the divine realm. He stands before a giant door, wondering what it could be. Suddenly, it opens, and inside he can see numerous dwarves with a gloomy look. At the top of the gate stands the bully, saying that in the name of the dwarf god, he orders his army to destroy the fragile locusts until they finally destroy the divine core. With this order, the monsters start shouting excitedly. The other students can watch the fight on a screen projected by the system. They notice that the dwarf army is bigger than before, and probably the strength is already equivalent to the top 50. Another student disagrees, saying that each dwarf is equipped with an iron weapon, so the current strength is equivalent to at least the top 30. They also notice that there are elite-level life forms, and now Hanwoo will have no chance of winning. Qin Shuang observes this battle closely and notices the protagonist summoning his army of locusts. People are surprised, as they don't know what those red-colored insects are, and notice that they are explosive locusts, an elite life form, and as far as they knew, they were supposed to be common locusts. They didn't imagine there were elite-level explosive locusts, and there are many of them. Another student says that it doesn't matter, as even being elite, the combat power won't match that of the common dwarves. After all, trash is trash. The locusts fly towards the dwarves, causing a huge explosion shortly afterward. The protagonist smiles and remembers the previous day when he invoked a huge magic circle, as he was determined to make a big bet. He wanted to retain 10 million adults to maintain racial continuity, and the remaining 2,490,000,000 locusts were all sacrificed. With that, his magic circle is activated, creating a kind of pink fire, and within this fire were the sacrificed locusts. Then the system presents 3 options. The first is 10,000 elite goblin warriors. The second is the Eye of Life, capable of continuously emerging from the source of life to nurture and improve the surroundings. And, lastly, a level 1 artifact, Explosive Heart. This makes him reflect that, after the divine core, there is a certain chance of giving birth to contain explosions. The clan core gives the option of power division of the 10,000 goblin warriors, which will certainly solve the current crisis. But unfortunately, it is a disposable item, so it will not be able to handle a future crisis. The second option, the Eye of the Source of Life, seems like a long-term investment, but it will not be able to handle the bullying the next day. With that said, he decides to choose the third option, as it is an investment in the main clan, and has a sustainable impact, being the only plausible option to choose. An ice stone appears in front of him, making him grab and destroy it with his hand. An energy emerges until the appearance of the explosive locust, an elite creature that can cause explosions. It has no wisdom, obeying only the commands of the gods. It has a life cycle of 180 days. He grabs one in his hand and throws it forward, causing a gigantic explosion. This makes him realize that such power will not kill a common dwarf, but considering the quantity, the story might be different. The smoke from the explosion dissipates until the audience asks how the war situation is, as they can't see anything anymore. The dwarves are all on the ground, except for the elite dwarf. He is holding his stomach due to the injuries, but managed to withstand the explosions. In front of him is Hanwoo, with his army of red locusts. Qin Shuang comments that it has become quite interesting now. The protagonist orders his locusts to attack the standing dwarf, but Jung Bin shouts for the surviving dwarves to return immediately to the divine realm. He laughs and says that it is too late to want to retreat now, and imagines that his entire clan will cross the portal to invade the bully's divine realm. Immediately, all of them fly towards the portal, creating a huge explosion shortly thereafter. Jung Bin becomes furious, asking to send the locusts away from his realm. However, it is already too late, and the explosions start to finish them off one by one. He says he gives up the fight and therefore asks to remove the locusts from his realm so the dwarves can return. The protagonist smiles and asks if he wouldn't have his core destroyed, as that was the threat he heard earlier. Since that's the case, it's only fair to destroy his core. This makes him even more irritated to the point of saying that his parents will not let this go unpunished, as both are demigods. He smiles again and says he doesn't care about that and orders the red locusts to attack the core within that realm. Jung Bin despairs to the point of crying and begs to stop, admitting defeat and even promising never to bully him again in the future. And if there are any other conditions, he will fulfill them. But all he asks is not to destroy his core. He says he doesn't care about any of that and just wants to destroy it for everything he has done so far. At that moment, he hears a voice in his head saying he has done enough and to stop in his name. The voice is from Professor Liu, asking to stop. After all, the fight already has a winner. Jung Bin begs the professor to help him stop that madman who wants to kill him. However, it is of no use, and the locusts continue to approach the core and start to crack it bit by bit. He becomes increasingly weaker as he asks to be saved. Liu calls the protagonist's attention, asking if he heard what he said about stopping. Hanwoo smiles and decides to ask why a teacher is there. He says he is a class teacher, so it is natural for him to feel everything that happens in that school. The protagonist decides to ask another thing now, since he feels everything that is happening. Why did he never appear when he himself was being beaten by the bully, extorted, and even intimidated? Why didn't he intervene at those times? He gets irritated with the question since Hanwoo doesn't even have demigod parents, so helping him would be like offending Jung Bin's family. With this in mind, he responds that he will explain this matter as soon as he stops the attacks. He decides to ask one last question, saying that if his own divine realm core were being attacked instead of Jung Bin's, would he have intervened to help? The teacher remains silent, not knowing what to answer, but Hanwoo asks him not to worry about it, as he already knows the answer. He says this, and his red locusts explode on the class bully's core, making him cry for having his divine realm destroyed. After that, the protagonist asks the teacher to please leave his divine realm. With that, the screen showing the fight is turned off. Jung Bin lies on the ground, frustrated, saying that it's all over and now he is nothing but a cripple. The teacher runs to the classroom, calling for Hanwoo. A student responds that he has already gone home, as he didn't appear after the fight. This makes him furious, imagining that he should be expelled for what he did. Meanwhile, inside the protagonist's divine realm, he requests a battle report, and the system reports that, at the moment, there are 18,090 self-destructive locusts and 4,050,643 common locusts. Seeing this, he thinks that he needs to cultivate more self-destructive locusts for the future. In his possession is the fragment of Jung Bin's divine realm, which he can now use to merge with his own. With this in mind, he activates the ability to merge, emanating enormous energy from the fragment. The system informs the details of the current Divine Realm area and that the level has risen to 2. This evolution makes him happy, as it was not bad and should last at least until graduation. However, something still worries him as Jungbin threatened him, saying his parents will not let this slide, and that is a problem since both are demigods. To make matters worse, the teacher is on the bully's side, so the school will not protect him, meaning he needs to get stronger as quickly as possible. He decides to sell the iron dwarf hammer he won in the battle, hoping to find someone who wants to trade for good items. He notices that someone quickly appears wanting to accept the trade and offers the item Fire Crystal Lava. This reminds him that this fire crystal can increase the fire resistance of the familiar, as well as enhance explosive power. With this in mind, he decides to accept the trade, as with this item, the self-destructive locusts can evolve again. The fragment begins to overflow with enormous energy, slightly changing the structure of the locusts. They remain elite creatures, but their talents are lava explosion. The reproduction capacity is 20 times higher, and they have a lifespan of 250 days. He grabs one in his hand and throws it forward to test. A stronger explosion than the previous ones occurs in front of him, making him excited, as that explosion level is equivalent to a grenade. Plus, it has a lava splash effect. With this, it will cause enormous area damage. This makes him think that he basically has a bunch of highly explosive grenades. At school, inside the principal's office, Jungbin's father's shouts for explanations can be heard, as his son had his Divine Realm core broken, and now there is no possibility of remodeling it. Dean tries to explain what happened and says that the battle was caused by his son, and there are several records of rule violations, as well as bullying in the classroom. He becomes furious as his son had the core destroyed, and the school does not want to take responsibility. After all, if this happened, it was the teacher's fault. Jungbin's mother joins the conversation, saying that the student who did this deserves to be punished, and not only that, but he should also be expelled immediately. Hanwoo continues training his locusts, asking to use growth acceleration to regenerate some explosive locusts. At this moment, Principal Dean calls the protagonist, making him worried as the worst is yet to come. He answers the call, and she says that it is Principal Shu and needs to tell him something. She explains that Jungbin's parents went to the school and are asking for him to be punished for what he did, and tells him about the conversation with them. The student's mother was furious, demanding that the protagonist be expelled immediately. Dean explained that after an investigation, they discovered that it was their own son who initiated the invasion of the Divine Realm, and that Hanwoo only won using his own strength, without any cheating. With that said, there are no grounds for his expulsion. She became furious to the point of asking if the school was really going to try to cover up for a bad student who goes around destroying his classmates' cores. The principal asked her not to distort the facts. After all, Hanwoo has always been an excellent student who follows the rules. Moreover, the school has plenty of evidence that their son bullied him multiple times. She, already enraged, said she just wanted to know if they were going to expel him or not. Dean apologized, stating that this would not be possible. Jungbin's father began to emanate a tremendous power, saying that he might accept that the school would not punish Hanwoo severely, but as revenge, he would vent his anger, and said that if they refused to agree with what he was about to say, then he would no longer consider the school's reputation. The principal, explaining all this to the protagonist, concluded by saying that Jungbin's father also threatened to send a legion of 1,000 men to invade his divine realm, regardless of the outcome, and informing him of this was the most the school could do to protect him. After all, a legion of 1,000 men from a demigod is enough to be more than an army of 50,000 ordinary students. With that said, she asked if he would be able to handle the situation. He thanked the principal for her help and said he would go to the school the next day to face this challenge. With that, he ended the video call and imagined that he needed to hurry to become stronger So it was time to launch the second sacrifice. Again, he activated his power, initiating the sacrifice of a few billion more locusts until an enormous volcano erupted due to the presence of such power. The system again presented three options. The first was a level 1 sacred artifact. The second option was a level 1 skill crystal, the fireball. And lastly, the familiar Jianfeng. Reading the options, he thought that having a treasure in exchange for 4,800,000,000 locusts was not bad. He decided to choose the third option. A familiar appeared in front of him. Its name was Jianfeng, and it was a swordsman. In addition to possessing numerous skills, it had 500,000 faith power and a lifespan of 800 years, currently being 150 years old. The familiar called its master by the name of God and said it needed a sword. The protagonist replied that this would not be a problem, accessing his system to the equipment option for deities. Meanwhile, he pondered that in recent days he had cultivated many locusts until his faith power reached 100 million. Therefore, he currently had 54 divine power points. The equipment was divided into 4 levels: common equipment, faith equipment, divine power equipment, and finally, deity equipment, each requiring a greater prerequisite to use. With this in mind, he decided to buy the Great Storm Sword, handing it to his familiar. He made the first test, delivering a blow to the ground that made several cuts in the air, but told his god that he still needed 3 more identical weapons to fully unleash his potential. This left Hanwoo stunned, as he needed 3 more of those swords, and just one cost 150 divine power points, which were not easy to obtain. Knowing this, and what is to come, with a battle likely involving 1,000 men of a demigod, the MC cannot afford to be careless, checking what else he can find in his system. At this moment, in the divine kingdom of Qin Shuang, she is focused, channeling energy, while several electric birds gather around her, always keeping her eyes closed. All she can imagine is when she was younger and was drowning. Hanwoo ran without thinking twice and pulled her out of the water, giving her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to save her. She opens her eyes at this moment, and remembering all of this makes her extremely embarrassed, saying that the MC is annoying and deserves to be squeezed to death, adding that she has a grandfather who is a true god and 23 demigod relatives, so she didn't need protection. At this moment, her system rings. It's a call from Hanwoo. She answers, already asking if he has changed his mind about being an obedient slave. He responds that he hasn't since, at the moment he just wants to borrow her divine power. She asks what he has that's special to offer in return. After all, the familiars he showed in the fight are trash, and he shouldn't think he's someone just because he defeated Jungbin, making it clear that she found the explosive grasshoppers to be worthless trash. After all these insults, the MC simply apologizes for the inconvenience and ends the call. She panics because she has no idea why she said all that since the words just jumped out of her mouth, and, dying of fear that there was a misunderstanding, she decides to call him back. Hanwoo answers, asking if there are more insults she wants to say. Embarrassed, she just asks how much he wants from her and requests the account number. After getting this help from her friend, he provides more swords for his familiar, saying that he risked everything buying these countless swords, so he hopes, from the bottom of his heart, that it's worth it. The next day, in the classroom, voices of students could be heard saying that the MC is crazy to show up there and apparently isn't afraid of the 1,000-man army of the demigod. Another one wants to see if he'll stay so calm after his core is violated. Hanwoo observes everyone talking about this, and, apparently, they all already know what's going to happen and are clearly hoping it all goes wrong. At this moment, Qin Shuang enters the room, saying that now it makes sense why he called the day before, since it's to compete against a demigod. But she advises him to give up on this effort because even a legion of 1,000 men from a demigod is enough to ensure he can't do anything. He smiles and says that, in any case, he has no other choice. She responds that he does have a choice. He just needs to become her slave. After all, Her family has a true god and 23 demigods, so she could easily talk to Jungbin's parents to stop this. He turns around, thanking her for the offer but declining, going to prepare to face the demigod's 1,000-man legion. A person, watching from afar, becomes furious at how Qin Shuang treats the MC so well, and all they wish for at the moment is for him to die. At this moment, a teacher opens the classroom door with Jungbin's parents and points forward, showing who this Hanwoo is. Mrs. Du immediately becomes furious, calling him a bastard for destroying her son's core. John Lin asks her to calm down because they can't break the school's rules. The teacher asks Hanwoo to come to the front since they can't waste the precious time of the Zhang family, but he smiles, saying he wants to wait for the principal to have a witness. Lei Tian says that such a small matter isn't worthy of the principal's witness, and that he himself is enough to witness what will happen, and asks him to comply quickly, or else things will get complicated. At this moment, Principal Shumei enters the room, asking the teacher who he is being disrespectful to in this way. He asks her not to worry, since he is dealing with a small matter and taking the opportunity to discipline his students. She reminds him not to forget that he is a teacher at a respected school and not a guard dog for a demigod, making that very clear. The students' parents are satisfied with the principal's presence and ask if they can begin. She asks Hanwoo if he's ready, and he, full of confidence, replies that he is. Janlin wastes no time and plays his invasion card. The MC also begins his journey to the kingdom, immediately encountering several gazes directed at him. These are the gazes of fierce wolves. A student watching on the big screen notices that the wolf cavalry, led by a cavalry captain, has power beyond the ordinary. Another boy responds that this wolf cavalry is a combination of green orcs and dire wolves, and they also have a combination of high-level equipment, meaning that Hanwoo is finished. The wolf army prepares to face the MC, as does Janlin, overflowing with immense power as he calls him a bastard for destroying his son's divine core, and for that reason, he will pay with blood. Qin Shuang observes the troops used by the man, and the wolf cavalry is clearly counted as 2 units. Originally, they said they would send a legion of 1,000 men, but at the moment, there are 2,000 combat units, which is a major cheat. The principal remains silent since there is nothing she can do about it. The wolves advance on their master's command, just as the explosive grasshoppers also appear in favor of the MC, impressing some students. After all, there are 7 million elite grasshoppers, and they find it strange, since the day before there were only 20,000 left, having no idea how it was possible to cultivate so many in such a short time. It's almost frightening. Another says it won't make a difference since he's facing the elite of the elite, which are the mounted wolves. And unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done. Several explosions begin to happen, and they realize that millions of grasshoppers were sacrificed for nothing, since only a few mounted riders were slightly injured. Letian says that, indeed, Hanwoo is talented, but he has encountered an obstacle he won't be able to overcome. Otherwise, he might have made a name for himself at the school. Another student finds the unfolding of the fight strange and asks everyone to look closely at the screen. A giant cloud appears in the sky, surrounding the wolves, and it begins to rain explosive grasshoppers, scaring the monsters. The explosions from these grasshoppers were colossal, wiping out all the wolves within the blast radius. Qin Shuang is impressed by what she's seeing and asks what the hell is going on. After all, what kind of grasshopper is this that causes such a powerful explosion that it shoots magma into the air? The principal looks back and asks if there is any student or teacher who has the ability to detect the grasshoppers to provide accurate information about them. A young man uses his power and says that those are evolved elite forms of the explosive grasshoppers. Sumei is pleased to hear this and says it was an excellent job by her student. Janlin, however, is unfazed by so little and asks if they really believe they can destroy his cavalry with so little, and orders his monsters to use their supernatural powers. With this, the leader howls, overflowing with powerful energy, as do the other wolves, who begin to blow a blue wind, thus creating the penetrating aura of ice to successfully counter the explosions. A student says that in the end, a demigod is a demigod, and logically wouldn't be defeated with so little, even admitting that the elite forms of the explosive grasshoppers are truly powerful, and says it's a shame that only 500,000 grasshoppers remain, and to make matters worse, they are all exhausted. Jianlin, determined to show what true fear is, says he will completely destroy the MC's core, and, with that, he will be expelled from school, reaching rock bottom, and orders his wolves to run and completely destroy Hanwoo's core. The principal turns around, saying that unfortunately, it's over. However, someone in the room asks what that divine form in the MC's core is. This catches Qin Shuang's attention, and she looks to see what it is. She only sees the wolves staring at a shadow, and upon looking closer, she notices that it is a familiar. One of the students asks if those aren't the storm swords that cost 50 divine powers, so 4 would cost 200, and the math doesn't add up since Hanwoo is an orphan and shouldn't be rich enough to buy these weapons. The principal explains that this is Jian Feng, who belongs to a clan with extraordinary life forms. A student says that it probably doesn't make a difference anymore. After all, they are facing the army of a demigod, and the cavalry captain will likely deal with that warrior while the rest of the wolves destroy the core. She reflects more on what she's seeing, and, judging by the appearance of that familiar, it's not an extraordinary life form, but rather a genuine heroic life form. Jianlin is also surprised by what he's seeing. After all, in his entire life fighting for decades, he only managed to produce one heroic form. So how could a high school student have achieved such a feat? He orders his wolves to destroy the core immediately, because after doing so, he will be able to capture this heroic life form for himself. Jian Feng begins to gather energy in his eyes, and prepares as several mounted wolves are coming his way. However, they are all repelled with his level 3 ability, Storm Cuts, and he also launches others into the air, using his level 1 ability, Whirlwind. A monster uses its freezing breath, and with that, it manages to freeze the familiar's feet. The wolves take the opportunity to attack, but he simply raises his 4 swords and activates his Iron Cut ability, creating an energy circle in the air that becomes increasingly powerful until it activates, causing a massive hole in the area and destroying everything around. The students are surprised because they didn't imagine a familiar could have so much power. Meanwhile, Jian Feng simply stands before the defeated wolves. Jianlin starts to get worried about the situation and asks the wolf cavalry captain to defeat the enemy. The monster positions itself and, overflowing with enormous power, prepares for battle. Suddenly, a voice asks if the demigod really intends to break the promise. He turns around and notices that the director is present and immediately responds that no, he would never dare do that, and asks the cavalry captain to retreat, along with the entire army. The director looks at the MC, and immediately, Jian Feng steps in front, leaving him surprised to see this scene. After all this confusion, still at school, the principal says that Hanwoo did a good job, but he can't relax just because he has a heroic life form, as despite being powerful, they are not invincible. He hears this, and says that he has a request to make. She asks what it would be. He says that he would like to change classes, leaving the teacher surprised by this, apologizing to him for not paying much attention, but promising to teach well from now on, and also receiving a significant amount of resources for daily practice, so he asks for a chance to correct these mistakes. He says, this thinking that clearly this student will become strong and enter a university, so he himself will receive incredible rewards for having helped. However, it's no use since the MC responds that he doesn't want that. His only desire is to change classes. The principal explains that he can't just change classes as he wishes since the school has its own regulations, and says that if he insists so much on it, he must pass the test assigned by the school, and if he succeeds, She herself will help him with the change. He accepts the test and says he will do as she instructs. Qin Shuang immediately shouts that she would also like to apply for this test. The teacher feels embarrassed and asks his student that if she doesn't like something about her teacher, she can speak up. But it's not necessary to go so far as to want to change classes. She replies that she has no dissatisfaction, she just doesn't want to stay there anymore. Xiaolong also stands up, telling the principal that he would like to take this test. Letian asks the class monitor what he is doing. He thanks for the help he's received so far, but he doesn't want to stay in that class anymore. He also turns to Qin Shuang, imagining that he can't let anyone else have her. The principal informs them that she will prepare the test for the following day. Outside the school, Qin Shuang runs up to the MC, asking how on earth he managed to obtain a heroic life form. He says that this matter is none of her concern, but she responds that it is. After all, he owes 150 divine power points, and if he cannot pay it back, he must become a slave to settle the debt. So the least she is entitled to know is how he acquired a heroic life form. He makes it clear that if she wants to collect the debt, he will pay 5 divine power points as interest. But if she wants to know about the heroic life form, unfortunately, she will remain in the dark. He says this and teleports away, leaving her furious. Inside his divine kingdom, the MC consults his troops and notes that he has 1 billion common grasshoppers, 1 million explosive grasshoppers, and 30,000 detonating grasshoppers, feeling a bit concerned if this will be enough for the class change test. At that moment, Jianfeng appears, informing him that the wolf cavalry is hiding inside the mines, and asks if he should destroy them immediately. This makes him think that indeed, many wolves escaped, and that this army inside his divine kingdom could be a problem, but killing them directly would be a great waste. With this in mind, he orders his familiar to capture the cavalry and ensure they are kept alive. 2 hours pass, and he returns with all the wolves tied up. The system asks if he would like to sacrifice 1 billion grasshoppers and 24 wolf cavalry units. He selects yes and activates his sacrifice ability. This sacrifice grants him a wick, a furnace artifact, and 3 watchtowers. He notices that the wick is indeed good, but how on earth would the grasshoppers handle it? The same goes for the furnace and watchtowers, and he thinks that, unfortunately, none of these items are interesting to him. At this moment, he remembers that he captured a few hundred dwarves in his battle against Zheng Bin, and wonders what happened to them, activating his god's eyes. The dwarves are currently working and notice their master's eye watching them, causing them to thank their god for the wonderful life he has granted them. He realizes that after capturing the dwarves, he ordered them to mine, and definitely, mining and equipment crafting are the dwarves' talents, while the fool, Zheng Bin, forced them to fight. Knowing this, he imagines they have the talent to craft equipment and, without a doubt, will be very useful in the furnace. He sends them there and asks them to forge the best equipment possible. The dwarves are surprised, as the gods have sent a divine gift. Meanwhile, the teachers are gathered. Li Tian explains that everyone is already aware of the class change test that 3 students will take, and that the school has given authority for everyone to create something. One teacher says he has nothing to say except thank you, as they are giving away 3 of the best students as a gift. He says he doesn't care about the tests for 2 of the students, but demands that Hanwu's test be raised to the maximum level since he hates a student who doesn't respect the teachers, and asks all his colleagues to please make this happen. The teachers agree to help, while Li Tian is just furious about being reprimanded by the principal, in addition to having his semester salary cut. The next day, already in the classroom, the teacher presents the 3 envelopes containing each student's test. Xiaolong and Qin Shuang take their envelopes, as does the MC, who is surprised to read that his evaluation test is at level 10, requiring him to defend against 10,000 foreign invaders. The principal asks the teacher if he would like to reconsider Hanwu's absurd test, but he responds that this was a decision made by all the teachers together. The MC asks the principal not to worry, as Letian is eager to see his abilities in action. This irritates him, prompting him to say that he should not regret it later. Qin Shuang once again asks him to become her slave, and if he does, she will ensure that absolutely no one at that school dares to intimidate him again. He thanks her for the kindness and says they will see each other after the test. She replies that it's fine, calling him ungrateful. Meanwhile, Xiaolong is eager to see the MC make a fool of himself in this test. The test begins with thousands of goblins appearing in front of him. The people watching on the big screen comment that they heard Hanwu's test is the hardest of the three and say it's well-deserved for having offended Professor Liu. The MC is not pleased, considering that Letian can't even be called a man for putting so many fire-resistant goblins against him. The professor, on the other hand, claims this is for his student to learn a lesson, as 10,000 red goblins should be more than enough to destroy the divine kingdom, and he makes it clear to other students that there is no hatred between teachers and students, and that after this small test, Hanwu will certainly understand the good intentions behind the teachers. Meanwhile, the principal is rooting for him. The MC begins his attack, sending his legion of grasshoppers into battle, but the goblins simply summon their fireballs and launch them, exploding all the grasshoppers. The MC already anticipated that mere common grasshoppers would not inflict any damage and decides to use his explosive grasshoppers for the attack, scaring the red goblins. Then, numerous explosions occur, eliminating 400 goblins at once. Qin Shuang and Xiaolong return from their tests, and she runs to the principal, asking how the MC is doing. Shumei says the situation is not very good, as grasshoppers are inferior creatures, and even if well cultivated, they still wouldn't reach the top. Hanwu, seemingly calm, continues to send more and more explosive grasshoppers, eliminating another 3,000 red goblins at once, while the rest desperately try to reach the crystal to destroy it. A student comments that, unfortunately, it's over this time. After all, he may have a heroic life form, but there's nothing he can do against 6,500 red goblins. Qin Shuang also laments, as an insane army like that will destroy her classmates' core. The principal immediately contacts the MC, asking that if he can't hold out, he should just admit defeat, as there's no shame in it, and with time, he can rise again. He makes it clear that he's already decided to change classes and will attempt it until his last breath, adding that he hasn't lost yet. He says this while his familiar delivers numerous blows to the approaching goblins, finishing them off one by one. The goblins become enraged, using their roars and launching their fireballs, causing countless explosions on the ground where Jian Feng was, making them believe it's unfortunately over, as the familiar must have suffered serious damage in these attacks. The professor is the most excited, saying that Hanwu must learn the lesson this time, until a student asks them to look closely. An army of dwarves emerges in the middle of the battle. They position themselves asking to protect their god, leaving the red goblins frightened, as an army of dwarves is attacking everyone. The students watching are surprised, asking if this isn't the same faction Zheng Bian had, and, with all this talent, Hanwu must be at the very least in the top 10 of the year. With the dwarves' victory over the red goblins, the MC celebrates, having won even while at a disadvantage. The principal and Qin Shuang are also pleased with the result, unlike the professor, who is irritated by this victory. With the return of the three students, all the teachers want to recruit them for their respective classes, making it clear that they will provide the maximum resources possible for each one. Xiaolong can only imagine going wherever Qin Shuang goes, regardless of which class it will be. The MC is bothered by something, asking the principal why his test was so difficult. She explains that the level of each student's test was chosen collectively by all the teachers of that grade. He says he understands and kindly asks to check each vote. She agrees and hands over the summary of opinions about the class transfer test evaluation. All the teachers are dissatisfied with Letian, as it was a disaster supporting him against the student. Hanwu goes to two teachers who clearly voted fairly and asks what resources they would provide if he joined one of them. The first teacher says that this test made it clear the MC's ability to cultivate dwarves, and if he joins his class, he will provide an army of 10,000 dwarves. With this, he will easily make it into the top 10 and have a bright future. The other teacher says that central family cultivation is the most important and has several resources on hand that will be useful in cultivating insects. So, if he joins his class, he will fully assist in the life transition of grasshopper species. With that decided, Hanwoo tells Professor Tianwen that he would like to join his class. The girl, knowing the MC will go there, says she also wants to join that professor's class. The same goes for Xiao Long, as he will go wherever the girl goes. The professor is delighted that so many students decided to join his class, and that's how you win the Outstanding Teacher Award. Besides that, it is great that so many good students are joining his class. He presents a gift to the MC as thanks for deciding to join his class. He notices it is a hive construction letter that occupies a square kilometer of land and can hatch 1 million insectoids annually. This makes him happy, as it was literally tailor-made for him, and he begins to think about his future strategies, as after setting up the hive in his divine realm, he will be able to bless it with 2 level 1 relics. The hive will perfectly amplify the power of both relics and, consequently, the eggs within it. Thus, he will be able to obtain 1 million grasshoppers every year. With this in mind, he thanks the professor for the generosity, and the professor says there is no need to thank him. Just deliver the best results, and that will be a reward in itself. The principal calls everyone's attention, saying that the test of the day is a simple test, so there's no need to take it so seriously, but that in 7 days, the exam will cover the entire school, as it will determine the allocation of resources among classes in the future. After that, within the MC's divine realm, he checks his situation and currently has 2 million grasshoppers, 5,000 self-destructing grasshoppers, 300 explosive grasshoppers, 52 dwarves, and Jianfeng, which is a heroic life form. He worries when analyzing his situation, as with this level of strength, participating in the exam that will cover 7 days will probably result in the worst score among all students, and he definitely needs to find a way to increase the number of grasshoppers as well as strengthen the ones he already has. He also notes that the name of the dwarves is different, now being Redforge dwarves, and flies off as he wants to see with his own eyes what this means. Upon arriving where they are gathered, he notices that the dwarves are indeed different, now being an elite creature with various talents and extremely higher power. This makes him think how great it would be if they were from his main family, as he can only use growth acceleration more frequently with his main family. After that, 4 days pass, and with 7.3 billion grasshoppers currently, he hopes to get something good this time. Activating his life sacrifice ability on all the grasshoppers, he wonders what he will gain this time. The system gives the first option, saying, Sacred Item Level 2, Law of Gluttony. Once charged in the Divine Realm Core, the main race gains the ability to eat voraciously. If the total energy of the consumed food exceeds its own energy by 1,000 times, it can complete its own evolution. The second option says, Hero Model. Giving this to an extraordinary life form can help it be promoted to a heroic life form. And finally, the third option will give a bit of divinity. The MC is pleased as these are definitely all good options, making it hard to choose any, and he thinks about the 3 options. The first option could transform various grasshoppers into elite life forms, but he may not be able to afford it. The second could make a life form evolve to the heroic version, and the third option would give him power equivalent to 100 billion faith, something like winning the lottery. After much thought, he decides to choose the first option. 3 days pass, and Hanwoo is unsure if what is in front of him is a gigantic grasshopper or a gigantic lizard, declaring that it will be the explosive plus grasshopper. Later, at school, Qin Shuang goes to him asking if he has considered becoming their slave. as he has no support or resources, making it impossible to stand out among the various demigods, and says she really thinks his grasshoppers are strong, but in the end, they are not a big deal. She also says she thinks the dwarves are cool, but that they are not part of the main family. The MC thanks her for her kindness and says he will find out all of this only after the exam. She does not like this at all and comments that he is driving her crazy. Xiaolong just watches from his desk, wishing that the MC would disappear completely from Qin Shuang's sight. The professor explains the importance of this exam for the future in terms of resource distribution and asks everyone to give their best, making it clear that he has several sacred relics, domain lands, core fragments, among other resources, available if needed. He also emphasizes the importance of reading the rules of this exam carefully. The first stage is the elimination system. Next comes the ranking system, where everyone will receive an evaluation of the same difficulty. Those who fail will be directly eliminated from the school. The MC notes that being expelled from the school upon elimination is very harsh, but the rewards must be excellent. The top 100 will receive a divine territory. The top 50 will receive a level 1 sacred relic. The top 30 will receive a creation card. The top 20 will receive a first-grade building. The top 10 will receive a divine weapon of the student's choice. The top 5 will receive a transcendent seed that can accelerate an elite life form. The top 3 will have their divine core evolved, and the first place will win a point of divinity. Reading all this excites him, as he will fight until the end for these rewards. With all these explanations, the professor says the general exam is starting, warning that the first round of the general exam elimination test will begin soon, so everyone should prepare. The MC begins to head toward his divine realm until he teleports completely, asking all his family members to prepare for battle. He notices his enemies approaching and realizes they are flesh and blood puppets, definitely an ordinary life form, with elite level combat power, as well as extremely thick and resistant skin. But fortunately, they are slow. With that, he orders 50,000 grasshoppers to explode in magma form, causing several explosions among the monsters, which only roar in response. He gets excited, as the smell of roasted meat is strong, and wonders if he could feed his grasshoppers with those monsters, asking the red goblin dwarves to recover the bodies from the battle. After a while, he notices that there are great supplements there and is confused if this isn't a test. As if it continues like this, the upcoming exams will be intense. The teachers watch on the big screen, lamenting that another student they were optimistic about has been eliminated. Tianwen says that 20 of the eliminated students were from his class, reducing it to a third. Another professor says that his situation is worse, as half of his students were eliminated, and questions if the level isn't too high. The principal explains that she had the 3 vice principals compete for positions with the Demon Abyss civilization at the forefront, so there must be a reason for choosing the flesh demon puppet as an invader, and since they are demigods, it isn't interesting to speculate. Tianwen is excited, as his student turned everyone's nightmare into food for himself, and asks if there are still any relatives who can resist the toxins in the meat and blood of those demons. Another professor is curious about this, as if the grasshoppers can ignore the toxins of the demonic puppets. It is a great discovery worthy of research. Li Tian responds that it is just luck, as in terms of strength, those grasshoppers are trash. Tianwen makes it clear that luck is also part of strength, and definitely those grasshoppers have been well cultivated, so they are not weak, stating that, despite being an extraordinary life form, it still crossed the threshold of extraordinary life forms. Li Tian asks if these extraordinary life forms are not, in the end, just grasshoppers. After all, their combat power is generally equal to that of goblins, which are common life forms, and even worse than them in other aspects. The professor makes it clear that his colleague is being one-sided, as he is comparing the deficiencies of the grasshoppers with the advantages of another race. For example, grasshoppers can expand their population 100 or 1,000 times a year, Asking if goblins can do the same, he says he will not discuss useless things and only wants to see the results, proposing a bet that, in the end, Liumo's score will be higher than Hanwu's. Tianwen responds that the MC will definitely have the best scores. Letian says that all the teachers are there as witnesses, and the result will cost the loser 5 points of divinity. He says this thinking the bet is already won. After all, Liumo is his nephew, and definitely, Tianwen will not provide the same resources. On the big screen, it is possible to see that after the eliminations, 430 candidates were approved, and the number of students selected for the exam is 300. Lichen says that there are only useless bastards, as there are still 130 people left who passed. Another professor asks him not to blame the students, as it is not uncommon to fail due to the level of difficulty. The ranking test will begin, with various skeleton warriors appearing. The teachers ask if that's really all there is, as it seems more like a giveaway. The MC gets excited, as he has 1 billion hungry baby grasshoppers, and suddenly, so many skeleton soldiers appear, it must be a joke. He orders his grasshoppers to completely devour that army. The skeletons, despite having glowing eyes, had nothing they could do. 2 hours pass and he feels relieved, as it was a great appetizer. However, the second wave of skeleton soldiers begins, but are immediately exploded by the self-destructing grasshoppers. He observes that if the lava continues to rise higher and higher, these skeleton soldiers will not be able to swim through it, increasing the temperature more and more. With this in mind, he asks the red goblin dwarves to pour out the melted lava from the great furnace. They immediately obey, killing all the skeleton soldiers as they come out of the portal. One of the professors is surprised, as Hanwu is definitely coming up with great ideas. Tianwen says that it is obvious after all, he is in the best possible class. Li Tian is not intimidated, as the MC has just reached the 7th wave, but Liumo is also at this level. At this moment, in Liumo's divine realm, he is positioned with his arrow towers, lightning towers, fire towers, among various other things, imagining that this student must really come from a rich family. The professor is excited, as he invested many resources in his nephew to ensure that he will be in first place this year, until he hears another professor asking to see Qin Shuang's divine realm. Observing her realm, he notes that there are 100 lightning towers, as well as 300,000 elite thunder natural life forms, and 100 giant ancestral trees. This impresses everyone, as her family is truly powerful. Even many demigods do not have as many trump cards as she does, and there are even rumors that the girl is among the top 3 in the series. Li Tian is furious, as he knows all this is because of Hanwu, and says that the boy will pay dearly for this. After all this, the 10th wave ends, leaving only 18 candidates, and he announces that the 11th wave will begin soon, making it clear that the level of difficulty will increase drastically. A shadow emerges from a red portal, leaving everyone in disbelief that this is a heroic life form. The monster in question is the bone collector of the skeleton race, and it is indeed a heroic life form. It continues walking, and as it passes by, all the bones on the ground begin to tremble, while a pink aura surrounds it. It raises its staff and creates a completely gigantic skeleton being. The bone collector raises its hand, asking its new creation to attack with all its might. The enormous skeleton attacks, saying it only wants to kill, and stomps on the ground, causing a huge explosion, leaving the professors surprised, as only 3 minutes have passed, but 8 students have already given up due to the excessive difficulty. Letian is annoyed, asking why the giant skeleton is so small in Hanwu's divine realm, and starts accusing him of cheating. Indeed, the skeleton generated in this realm was quite insignificant, even trembling with fear. Tianwen explains that the reason is simple. The bone fragments in the MC's divine realm were burned to ashes by the lava, so the bone collector did not have enough resources to create such a large being, leaving only the bone collector, who is disintegrated by the iron-cutting style of the familiar Jianfeng. The MC begins to yawn, insinuating that it is too easy as he has just passed the 11th invasion wave. The professor does not accept this result and accuses him again of cheating, insinuating that the student should already know what the tests would be. Tianwen asks what evidence he has for this accusation. The professor accuses him of protecting his own student, saying he will report him to the educational authorities, making it clear that everyone there is sensitive. But Hanwoo's unusual fighting style is suspicious after all. Who would think of cleaning the battlefield after defeating the skeleton soldiers? If he did that, it's because he knew that eventually the bone collector would appear needing bones to summon its greatest creation, and he makes it clear that he strongly suspects that Hanwoo already knew about the tests in advance, which is a cheat that the school should investigate. The principal makes it clear that the content of the exam was decided by the Supreme Director before leaving, and that even she did not know the content of the tests, asking the professor if he really thinks the Supreme Director would have done something so stupid. He panics and says no, that he must have been wrong, and that Hanwoo defeated the bone controller by sheer luck, but insists that even if there is no cheating, his scores are very unfair compared to the other students. She asks if Letian, as a demigod, is aware of how ridiculous these words are. After all, the civilization of the divine realm has never been about justice, but rather about survival, and one cannot compare the scores of anyone with anyone else. Highlighting the justice that the professor mentioned, she says that he himself used his authority in favor of his nephew, providing him with resources. Knowing this makes Tianwen angry, as it seems the professor is favoring his own nephew with a colossal amount of resources. And now, it makes sense why the bet was made, though it's a shot in the foot, since the MC passed the wave while his nephew is facing great difficulties. In the divine realm of Liumo, he notes that he is facing a colossal challenge, as his army has been defeated, and says that he gives up on the test. Tianwen informs that the results of the exam are out, as Hanwoo has passed and his nephew has failed, asking if he will pay the 5 divinity points, reminding him that the other professors are witnesses. He hands over his card, making it clear that he will eventually recover the points he lost. An hour passes, and now there are 3 people left to face the 13th wave: Hanwoo, Qin Shuang, and Huang Fei. The professors are eager to see who will take first place among the 3. In Huang Fei's divine realm, he gives up on the 14th invasion, as the level has become absurd. Qin Shuang, reaching the 16th invasion wave, also gives up. The principal is pleased to see Hanwoo in first place, continuing strong with his explosive locusts in the 20th invasion wave, causing explosions throughout the battlefield. A giant skeleton is generated as the smaller ones are killed, but the familiar Jian Feng appears with its annihilation technique, cutting the giant into pieces. 15 minutes pass, and the system announces that the 21st invasion will begin, making it clear that the difficulty level will increase dramatically and asking everyone to be prepared. He gets excited, as it seems a great challenge is coming. He notices that a colossal portal has appeared before him and is surprised, as it is much larger than normal. Emerging from within, sitting is the Supreme Lady of the Skeletons, and, as the system made clear, the difficulty level has indeed increased dramatically. Even the teachers are surprised, as that is the Supreme Lord of the Skeletons. The MC observes closely and is aware that the difference in strength is colossal, imagining that the best thing to do is to stop there. That said, he raises his hand in surrender. She, frustrated, asks why he is doing this, and the portal begins to pull her back out of the realm. She roars, furious, and throws a piece of bone that flies past him, causing a giant explosion, even though it was just a simple attack. He asks what the hell that was until the portal finally closes, and he is sent back to the normal world, ranking first on the leaderboard. The final result was Tianwen's class scored a total of 252 points, placing first, 20 points ahead of the second place. Meanwhile, Letian's class scored 192 points, placing 8th. The teacher is furious with this defeat, as in his mind, His class had more than the obligation to be in first place. The other students who failed are worried, as they don't want to be kicked out of school. Hanwoo only cares about celebrating since he came in first place. An hour passes, and the rewards start to be distributed. The MC received an iron ore resource card, a divine territory worth 100 divine powers, a card that can be exchanged for a level 1 sacred item, a level 1 temple, a divine weapon worth 100,000, a card of extraordinary seeds, one more level in the divine realm, one extra point of divinity, and lastly, a familiar reproduction card. The students are surprised to see these rewards on the big screen. The MC is thoughtful since he needs to carefully consider what types of rewards would be best to trade with the cards. Tianwen tells him not to worry, because he will guide him on which are the most suitable. This makes him happy, as his teacher is really reliable. In the MC's divine realm, he uses his territory card, expanding it to 20 square kilometers. Additionally, he uses the relic, and all the items he won were applied. He carefully examines the weapon and is aware that the trade card only allows for one exchange, and giving just one to his pet is useless. Imagining that it might be interesting to give a hammer or something like that to the dwarves, he finds a war hammer valued at nearly 1 million divine power, and it was forged from the core of the infernal hydra of the Supreme Lord. The minimum requirement is to have a heroic fire life form. He knows that unfortunately, he won't be able to use it immediately, so he will have to wait for one of the red dwarves to become a heroic fire life form. An hour later, still at school, the teacher comments on the overall exam and firmly believes that those who remain at the school are the elite. He also mentions that he would like the top 3 students in the class to come on stage to receive their prizes. The 3 go to the front, while the teacher explains that Hanwoo performed excellently in the overall exam, securing first place, and the reward will be the choice of any superior resource. Hearing this makes the MC thoughtful, wondering what is in the treasure chest of resources. The system lists the options, which are Giant's Fist, Fountain of Life, Iron Mine Core, Level 2 Skill Frozen Missile, Level 2 Buildings, Goblin Nest, and finally, an extraordinary life form, Linger. Without thinking twice, he chooses the Fountain of Life. Basically, it is a water fountain with vital energy, which can be used in large quantities to nourish life and improve the environment. The teacher acknowledges how incredible Hanwoo is for this choice, as he is not stubbornly seeking power, but rather recognizing his own strengths and looking to develop them. After that, a person approaches, congratulating the MC since he suddenly became rich, and asking his colleague to sell the divinity he won in the overall exam, offering to exchange it for 105 million divine power. He just wonders how this guy comes in wanting to give orders, even though he seems rich for offering 5 million extra, asking why he wants it. The boy responds that there is no specific reason. He just wants to know if the MC agrees to make the trade for 105 million divine power, as that's enough power to focus on the locusts or wherever he wants. The MC refuses the request. The student insists, saying that his grandfather is preparing to be promoted to a true god and needs divinity. So, if the MC sells that divinity, the student himself will owe a favor, in addition to the agreed divine power. This makes him think, as 105 million divine power is really a lot, and with all that, he would be able to greatly increase his locust army. He replies that it is indeed an interesting offer until his phone rings, and when he checks it, he's shocked, as Qin Shuang is sending a message asking him to sell the divinity to her for an incredible 150 million. He can't believe such an absurd amount and thinks that this girl definitely has money to spare. She asks if he really thinks 1 point of divinity is only worth 100 million. She also asks if he has no common sense. Although it's true that a bit of divinity can be condensed with 100 million divine energy, that only happens if the god produces and sells it. Moreover, if it were mixed with the power of faith from other gods, the success rate of divine power condensation would be greatly reduced. Therefore, The current price of divinity is 145 million divine power, but there's not even a market for it. He starts to understand better after this explanation, which means that Shuju was trying to scam him. With that in mind, he makes it clear to his classmate that he rejects his offer, leaving him nervous, asking the MC not to get so cocky just because he got first place in the general exam. However, the MC no longer cares about anything, as 150 million divine power has just been deposited into his account, feeling rich at this moment. After that, in his realm, he directs that the level 1 temple should be built near the Red Goblin site, and it is built right away. As for the fountain, he imagines it should be constructed near the desert, as with the temple, that land will become fertile soon. After that, he goes to the Red Goblins and gives them the new artifact, the Infernal Warhammer. They are amazed and thank him for everything their god has provided so far. Hanwoo takes the seed of supremacy in his hand and gives it to them, saying that from now on, that Red Goblin will be known as the Hammer of God, placing trust in him that he will become a hero soon, to the point of lifting the infernal hammer. He is moved by such honor and bids farewell to the MC, praising his god. While flying, the MC is looking at a crystal that the teacher asked him to choose, but he is not sure what it's for. He barely thinks about it when he gets a call from Tianwen, who, when answering, asks if he'd like to see him or something like that. The teacher talks about the question of who would be better, Hanwoo or Liumo, and with that, the teachers bet 5 points of divinity, with Tianwen himself winning that bet. He says he would like to give a divinity card equivalent to 150 million divine powers. Then, he explains the other war reward he won, which is the egg laid by the celestial demon insect king, and refined using a special method, which, even dead, will produce 10 liters of magic fetus every day. He emphasizes that, at the time, he said he would support him with every possible resource regarding the core familiars, imagining that for now, it is the only way to help the locusts make a leap in life. This makes the MC reflect that he doesn't have the support of the other teachers, as they consider the locusts useless. But he is aware that if the locusts mastered the path of life leap, assimilating with the celestial demon insects, they would have great potential overall. The teacher asks him to choose any of those rewards, as it's part of the bet he won. Without thinking twice, he replies that he wants the magic fetus egg. Tianwen points out that the combination of the celestial demon insect with the poison attribute is high, and it can carry the poisonous mist account of the level 1 sacred item, and with that, the result will be absolutely satisfying. He thanks him for all the information, saying that he will meet the expectations. Additionally, he asks if there is any way to provide a large amount of meat, regardless of quality, since the meat at the shopping centers is quite expensive. He suggests not feeding the locusts with meat and also not buying from shopping centers, as the cost is high and the benefit is low. He mentions that recently, the director has been invading the demon abyss, and there should be plenty of blood and flesh puppet corpses there, suggesting he inquire about it. The MC thanks him for the recommendation and ends the call. As he continues walking, he imagines that the effect of level 2 gluttony is quite powerful, as his locusts in the divine realm ate very quickly. Now, the realm's standard production cannot satisfy their appetite, so the best policy will be to find a food source as quickly as possible. He thinks about it and places the magic fetus egg under the ancient tree to make it produce essence faster. After that, 2 days pass, and he notices that some locusts apparently have already eaten the magic fetus eggs, becoming anxious to see what kind of creature will emerge from the cocoon. He also wonders how much longer it will take since 2 days have passed and still nothing. No sooner does he say this than he sees the cocoon cracking, feeling happy that the time has come. A new familiar emerges in front of him. It is the celestial demon insect. It's an ordinary creature. Its talent is cruelty, and its level of faith is fanatical. Hanwoo is pleased, as even though it is still in the common phase, it is 100 times stronger than the locusts. He also noticed that there is no information on the creation, probably because every demon insect must be assimilated by the magic element. By using a few magic drops, he notices that his familiar grows twice as large. Additionally, the law of gluttony also works on this familiar, and it doesn't take long for it to be promoted to an elite life form. With that said, he uses his sacred poisonous mist item, completely changing the form of his new pet. Now, it has become an elite life form, the poisonous mist insect. In another location, the Supreme Director wonders how this could have happened. He is in a place with thousands of skeletons everywhere, wondering what to do with so many broken bones. And even though the corpses are sealed in the card, if the divine power in the card runs out, the corpses will explode again. Suddenly, he receives a call from Tianwen. The professor says he's calling hastily just to ask if he'd like to provide the body of the demon puppet of flesh and blood, as he has a student who would like to buy it. The director asks what a student wants with demon puppets. He responds that they will be used to feed his main familiars, as they are locusts and could eat these flesh puppets with ease, just like they did in the elimination test. The director asks if this particular student isn't the genius who fought a demigod a few days ago, surprised that a small locust could be so useful, and adds that it's a pity that location isn't suitable for the locust's life, as they could introduce a large group of them to eat the flesh of these puppets and save a lot of divine power. He says this and pulls out a card, stating that it contains 1,000,000 flesh and blood puppets, asking him to give it to the student. A day passes, and the professor calls again, saying that the student ran out of meat and asked if there would be a permanent supply. The director can't believe that he used it all in one day, and, to make matters worse, wants a permanent supply. He asks for a moment to think of something. After coming to a conclusion, he says that there are indeed enough corpses, but it's not something he can provide for free. He makes the proposal to sell 100 demon puppets for 10,000 divine powers. 5 minutes later, the professor returns the call with the MC's response, saying that he agreed to the terms and wants to start by paying 1,000,000 in exchange for the meat. A few days later, Hanwoo is ready with his most powerful army, once again using his sacrifice ability. The options in exchange for this sacrifice are: Option 1, Giant Warriors, which are an extraordinary life form; Option 2, Level 3 Skill Crystal; and Option 3, Decomposition System, which breaks down matter and extracts pure energy. He considers all the options, taking into account the 12 billion elite life forms he used in the sacrifice. He thinks about the giants, as they are quite intelligent and their power is overwhelming, and just one of them could be sold for 10,000,000. However, he is also interested in Option 2, as the Level 3 poison explosion combined with the celestial demon insects, the poisonous mist, and the relic would be a perfect combination. Yet, he knows that his current divine core is at Level 3 and has no open slot to carry this new skill. After analyzing everything, he decides to choose Option 3, as it's said that energy crystals are the food of magical familiars, and they are quite expensive. Upon choosing this option, a huge machine appears in front of him. He decides to start by experimenting with a bit of iron ore. 5 hours later, the result is 3 iron crystals. He takes one in his hand to analyze, and knows that an iron crystal can be used as food for some special races, in addition to being useful for forging weapons. And each one is worth 5 points of divine power. He will definitely be able to make a great fortune in the long run. Suddenly, a voice echoes in his head, saying they were attacked by the undead during mining, injuring 3 companions. At the moment, the leader of the Red Dwarf clan is in battle, asking for their god's support if possible. He is surprised, as apparently the temple is contacting him, but he doesn't understand how on earth there are undead in his realm. To better understand what is happening, he uses his divine vision and sees the Red Dwarf facing an undead, but finds it strange that the undead's clothing is very similar to the Supreme Lord's. He also finds it odd that the enemy is handling such a powerful dwarf so well. He gets excited, as this is incredible, and tries to consult the information on the monster. but is startled to find that the consultation failed, as the skeleton is not his follower, and he has no other means to view the information. Suddenly, Jian Feng appears to face this new challenge, delivering the first blow quickly and making the skeleton's head fall to the ground. However, right after, the skeleton rises again with its entire body. The MC appears, trying to make the skeleton submit to him, but his hologram is attacked. He comments that this monster is really naive, as if the divine realm remains intact. His divine form will last forever as well. He orders his familiars to put pressure on these skeletons until they submit. 3 days later, all the undead are on their knees, finally surrendered. Hanwoo decides to check if this time he can access the information on these monsters, and now he succeeds. This is a weak undead lord from the skeleton clan. Its talent is crystal bones, and its faith power is 1 million per day. The next day at school, the teacher asks if everyone is ready for the new challenge, warning that the next test will really increase the gap between everyone, directly impacting the acceptance into the future colleges they will enter. The MC already imagines that his grandfather's last wish was for his grandson to enter the Imperial College to search for his missing parents, and this college is one of the best regarding the civilization of the divine realm. The teacher informs them that everyone will be transported to the demon abyss, and that the specific content of the exam will be sent via email. A student comments that in this abyss, it is said there is always a demonic aura that corrupts anyone who enters, turning them into a servant, and that only undead demons can survive. Xiaolong, smiling, is confident, believing that the time to defeat Hanwoo has finally come. Suddenly, an unknown call appears in his system. When he answers, he realizes it's Professor Ledian, saying he needs his help to eliminate someone. The student asks if he's talking about Hanwoo, because if so, there's no need to say anything, as he will face him in the upcoming test anyway. Letian thanks him, calling him his favorite student, and also says he has a gift to help a lot in the exams. The Demon Dragon card, an extraordinary life form, a race as powerful as a heroic life form. With that, the test begins, and everyone heads to the Demon Abyss. The exam requirements are presented. In summary, you can only assume one familiar incarnation at a time. If the incarnation dies, the student will come in their true form, being able to summon one familiar per day, with a limit of 100 familiars. You must destroy more than 90% of the skeletons. The weakest creature is the common undead, and the strongest is the extraordinary undead. The MC receives a notification asking him to choose one of the familiars he wants to appear. His options are the Locust, the Red Dwarf, the familiar Jian Feng, or the weak Skeleton Lord. He decides to bet on the Skeleton Lord, as it's an undead and therefore immune to the Abyss's demonic aura. However, he is startled to see an aura surrounding his body until he is teleported in the form of the incarnation he chose. He notices that the Demon Abyss is indeed a paradise for the undead, and he then summons 100 locusts. A dark curtain begins to rise, and he notices that, as he suspected, the demonic energy is truly the nemesis of familiars. After walking a bit around the area, he finds the bone demon fruit and orders his locusts to harvest it. No sooner does he give this order than he feels something strange, looking behind him and seeing a giant army of the undead. As they approach, he gets excited, as it's the perfect time to test the attack and defense of that skeleton form. 10 minutes pass, and the MC feels confident after testing his movements. He imagines that, despite all this hard work, the demon fruits will only provide 20 evaluation points, but the 100-point task requires defeating a demigod, and he stands no chance if he continues like this. He orders his army to go gather more fruits, betting on quantity. A day passes, and he is in possession of all the demon fruits in the abyss. He opens his system, since he has a plan, asking if anyone wants to buy 100 bone demon fruits for mission 49. He adds that he's also open to trades. The first person to read this asks how he can do that, saying it's cheating. Another person replies that it's not cheating, it's called resource integration, and also says they'll take some fruits, offering 50 points of divine power. Another person responds that they'll also want 50. Lastly, Professor Tianwen asks him to only trade resources obtained in that plane, giving him the first warning. With 3 warnings, he'll be disqualified from the test. The MC can only think that he's truly a business genius, as he finds a solution to every problem. A person transformed into a familiar says they were worried about where to find Hanwoo, but with these messages revealing the location, they wonder how he'll survive this time. It's revealed to be Xiaolong in his dragon form, accompanied by his fierce wolves. The MC notices his ranking dropping and becomes frustrated as he has a very weak familiar, making it quite difficult to gain points. If he doesn't complete advanced missions, he'll be surpassed in no time. Suddenly, he spots an army of skeletons behind him and decides to walk toward them. As he approaches, he lets out a loud roar and comments that he isn't sure if his incarnation as a skeleton lord can control them. One of the monsters observes the MC closely, and they all stand still, staring at him. He asks if they recognize him by any chance. Immediately, the skeletons bow. These are the common undead class skeleton soldiers, and their faith is that of true believers. Hanwoo is surprised, not understanding what's happening, as suddenly, more than a dozen skeleton soldiers, all true believers, submitted to him for no apparent reason. Without thinking too much about it, he asks his familiars to rise and patrol the camp. An hour later, his army grows. He now has a skeleton knight with the talents Iron Bones and Skeleton Summoning. His faith is that of a true believer. Hanwoo simply can't believe what he's seeing, as his small army suddenly became incredibly powerful. The Skeleton Knight reports that he was a member of the First Skeleton Legion during the confrontation against the Flesh and Blood Demon, and after the team separated, he had to stay behind. He also explains that due to the invasion of corrupted corpses, zombies, and puppets, his soldiers dwindled day by day, so he ended up sending skeletons to search for the Bone Demon fruit. The MC better understands the situation and is pleased that this new troop is under his command. Pondering how to make them stronger, he decides to check the current ranking and has already dropped to position 178. Seeing that his situation isn't great, he decides to start playing for real, announcing that he'll give bone crystals and leave the rest of the equipment for his soldiers. 10 minutes later, the army appears stronger, with the MC announcing that the current target will be the Flesh and Blood Demon puppet. They stand before the cave they are about to invade, and he explains to the army that the mission states there are about 10,000 Flesh and Blood Demon puppets in the lair, and they need to work as a team, as their current strength is 1,000 skeletons. They then enter the lair, but soon notice several creatures running toward them, trying to determine if they are human or monster. The skeletons take position and begin killing all the approaching puppets. The MC watches from afar, hoping that the slain Flesh and Blood puppets could transform into skeleton soldiers, adding more strength as members of his team. An hour passes, and now his army consists of 7,000 skeletons. This fills him with confidence, as only 3,000 Flesh and Blood puppets remain in the lair, so the time is now. He shouts for his troops to advance with all their might. 3 hours pass, and a soldier returns with an item in hand, offering it to his master. His points increase by 60, rising to rank 108. Meanwhile, outside the lair, a wolf is sniffing around while its master is furious, as he can't find Hanwoo anywhere. Xiaolong decides to check the ranking and notices his target just gained 60 points, meaning he defeated the Flesh and Blood Demon lair, exceeding expectations but making it clear that his luck ends here. With that said, Xiaolong heads toward the demon's lair and is enraged to see that Hanwoo secretly created a skeleton clan and, apparently, intends to use it to score high marks. Without wasting time, he orders his hellhounds to attack, running and leaping toward the MC, but the skeletons step in, protecting their master. The fight begins between the two sides, and Xiaolong admits that, in just 2 days within that dimension, Hanwoo descended to the Abyss Demon Plane and had already gathered so much power. If they waited a few more days, he'd have a colossal army. With this in mind, Xiaolong decides to join the battle too, in his dragon form, but is immediately blocked by the Skeleton Knight. The MC, curious, says to his classmate that he has no complaints but wants to know why he's attacking his family. Furious, he shouts that he simply doesn't like his appearance and demands that he die once and for all, unleashing several slashes with his roar and hitting him directly. The skeleton army is outraged by this scene, but the dragon sees them as a bunch of riffraff not even worth killing. They remain furious about what that dragon did to their master, until the MC gets up. Relieved that, fortunately, the skeleton lord can resurrect. He orders his army not to stand still, gathering all their strength and escaping as quickly as possible, leaving a warning that next time he meets Xiaolong, his death will be certain. Meanwhile, the little dragon decides to check the ranking and wonders why on earth Hanwoo hasn't been removed yet, until he takes a closer look and notices that this guy is at position 163, meaning he somehow managed to escape death. He becomes furious at this and decides that even if it takes all the time in the world, he needs to eliminate all those skeletons, flying straight to the front of the lair. But upon arrival, he realizes it's empty, with not a single skeleton in sight. He immediately orders his wolves to search within a 100-mile radius and not let a single skeleton escape. Some time passes, and the MC is still with his army, granting them bone crystal stones, imagining that, due to his classmates' attack, only 5,000 skeleton soldiers remain, who still need to develop. This item makes them more powerful. He checks his system and realizes that their strength is still insufficient, especially since, to be more recognized by the Imperial Capital Academy, they need to conquer even more notable achievements. The mission is to wipe out the fallen demon's tribe. The reward will be 80 evaluation points, plus a level 2 skill crystal, chain fireball. He is aware that the fallen demon is a native creature of the Abyss Demon Plane, but quite weak in strength, yet it's offering 80 points in the evaluation, possibly even allowing him to eventually use the fallen demon to mass-produce soldiers. With that, he informs his army that they are heading to the fallen demon's tribe. 2 months later, in the teacher's meeting room, a teacher comments that his class's student, Huang Fei, currently has an army of over 100,000 demonized goblins, and his points have reached 3,200, securing first place. Another mentions that Liumo is also doing excellently, with 3,010 points holding second place. Someone else asks Professor Tianwen why Hanwoo, who ranked first last time, isn't performing well this time. Letian interjects, saying he already mentioned that this boy relied on luck to get first place, but some short-sighted professor treated him like a treasure. Tianwen asks him to please show some decorum, as he's still a professor and should at least show a bit of decency. Letian asks if he's wrong since that student really is a waste, no matter how many resources are given to him. He says this while wondering if that boy will even make it out of the evaluation alive. The confident professor asks if he would like to make another bet, saying this because he is confident the MC will win. Letian asks if he's serious, and he responds that he's betting 10 divine points this time. The professor says he doesn't have 10 divine points but does have divine duties, and wagers his level 3 divine healing. Tianwen accepts and informs them that Hanwoo has begun handling a task worth 80 evaluation points and is about to succeed. He imagines that a task worth 80 evaluation points is extremely difficult for a high school student, and once completed, it will undoubtedly draw the attention of universities. And even if the final score isn't excellent, just appearing in front of the universities will be worth it. Meanwhile, in the Abyssal Plane, this place originally had millions of desolate demons, but now fewer than 100,000 remain. The MC is on top of a mountain, content as his strategy has worked so far, having gathered 900,000 skeleton warriors and ordering them to advance, as it's time to collect the debt. The army begins attacking the monsters until they are cornered. 20 minutes later, he raises his victory flag. The skeleton mages use their resurrection spells, and the corpses on the ground come to life shortly after. This new monster is the Skeleton Reviver from the Skeleton Clan. It is a transcendent undead with talents of hard bones, as well as skeleton resurrection. Its belief is universal. This surprises him, as the skeleton revivers are even stronger than the skeleton knights. The new monster laughs while summoning more skeletons to the army, which form even stronger than usual. The MC asks him to store some things so that his army will not suffer any damage. Suddenly, a soldier approaches, presenting the loot to his master. He notices it is a sacred item, the fireball staff. After being charged in the divine realm's core, it can grant some central clan members the ability to cast level 1 fireballs. Additionally, it is immune to demonic energy erosion, increasing various negative resistances. He also notes that the source of desolation can trigger a life transition, deciding to test it later with his locusts. Now that his army has over 1 million soldiers, he feels more confident in facing Xiaolong's army. He checks the task in his system and, after earning 80 mission points, his rank rises to 401, receiving a level 2 skill crystal, Fireball Barrage. The next task is a native race with 70 evaluation points. Knowing his next mission, he orders his enormous army to march immediately. 3 days pass, and the professors are watching the Abyss live. The system reports that Han Wu has completed several consecutive tasks, rising to 4th place in the ranking. One of the professors comments to Tianwen that his student is truly incredible, having climbed from rock bottom to 4th place. Ledian says, it doesn't matter if he's in 1st place, he's still not the first. Suddenly, Battle Fury Academy sends a message, wanting to interview the student Hanwu after the evaluation. At the same time, Hidden Dragon Academy does the same, wanting to schedule an interview with Hanwu. The same goes for Qingshan College, which sends a message saying that if Hanwu agrees, he can skip the college entrance exam and enroll directly. Letian becomes furious with Director Shu, asking why he's only showing university invitations for Hanwu and not mentioning the others. He replies that currently, there are no other invitations for the other students. The professor can't believe this, as the MC is only in 4th place at the moment, with 3 students ahead of him. The director explains that the prerequisite for university invitations is a total score of 3,000 and having completed at least one task worth 80 points or more. Currently, Hanwu is the only one who has met these requirements. Soon after, Qin Shuang also meets the 2 requirements and receives an invitation from Battle Fury Academy. The professor is no longer interested in university invitations, as there are fewer and fewer tasks left to complete, and Hanwu won't be able to take 1st place. With this in mind, he contacts Xiaolong and informs him that only 3 tasks remain, and the evaluation is almost over, urging him to work hard to finish before Hanwu takes the lead. Xiaolong replies that he understands and will complete a 90-point task before his classmate arrives. The MC decides to check the tasks still available. One gives 100 points and requires exterminating the Black Frog demigod people. Another gives 90 points and requires annihilating the Minotaur tribe. Lastly, there's also a task worth 90 points that requires eradicating the Treant's evil forest. He knows that he currently has 3,480 points, exactly 130 points behind the 1st place, and is currently in 3rd, meaning he needs to complete at least 2 tasks, but all of them are extremely difficult, considering that he currently has 20 million skeleton warriors, along with 2 heroic life forms and 190 transcendent life forms. He decides to start by exterminating the Minotaur tribe. Meanwhile, within the Minotaur tribe, several explosions are happening. Xiaolong is battling them, but he is frustrated because it is too difficult. Suddenly, a giant Minotaur appears, roaring and smashing everyone. Xiaolong orders a retreat, saying that as things stand, they'll only deplete their resources. The other student agrees, as even if they combine forces, they won't get past this evaluation level. However, he's shocked as he looks ahead and sees a colossal skeleton army, wondering what the hell this is. They assume they're unlucky to have encountered so many undead until they observe these skeletons fighting against the Minotaurs. The 2 notice that although they are numerous, their combat power is weak, and they could break through easily. The MC realizes that they want to flee, but warns them it won't be so easy, summoning his bone controllers. The powerful skeletons emerge and charge into the attack. The skeleton mage uses his magic and constantly summons the dead into battle. The two become desperate as they witness the dead lizard men turning into soldiers for the skeleton army, having no idea how they'll fight against this. Xiaolong decides to prioritize eliminating them, but a giant skeleton orders that neither of them move, leaving both paralyzed. The MC appears on top of the giant skeleton and greets both Xiaolong and Su Sun. Xiaolong can't believe it's Hanwu and asks if the main clan isn't supposed to be the Locusts. Since he didn't get a greeting in return, the MC simply says goodbye, as courtesy is essential. He says this as the giant lifts its foot, and Xiaolong begins shouting no until he is completely crushed with a single stomp. Susun says there is no conflict between them, apologizes if there was any misunderstanding, and argues that killing him won't bring any benefit. The MC responds that letting him live won't bring any benefit either. The lion begs, saying he can share all the treasure he took from the abyss, pleading to be spared. The MC agrees to the deal and tells him he can leave, and Shusun runs off immediately, fearing for his life. 5 hours pass, and the Minotaurs are completely defeated. Those who survive surrender, promising to submit to their new master. With that, the mission is successfully completed, increasing his points by 90. Now, his total is 3,570, 40 points behind first place, with 2 missions left. Suddenly, there's only 1 mission remaining, meaning someone else completed one. He panics, trying to figure out who succeeded, and sees that Qin Shuang has moved up to 3,580 points, reaching second place. He's happy for her, and not surprised, as she's a powerful person. Now, he only has the task of exterminating the semi-divine black frog people, but he feels unsure, as the difficulty is very high. However, to attract the attention of Kyoto Academy, which is top tier, he needs to secure first place. He orders all his troops to move out, as their next destination is the nest of the black frog people. At the school, it is announced that 11 classes have already finished their evaluations, and only 3 students from Professor Tianwen remain. They check the leaderboard and see Qin Shuang in second place, Hanwu in third, and Su Sun in seventh, but they don't understand what they're still doing in the abyss. Latian comments that they must be confused, as the only remaining task is to kill a semi-divine being, and they are daring to face it, not realizing that if they fail, they'll lose everything, as it's a task none of the 11 classes dared to attempt since no one in history has ever succeeded. Tianwen agrees and says that's exactly what the two are going to try, as they are challenging the semi-divine frogman, having full confidence in their students. She starts her attacks with her birds, and several electric blasts strike down on the enormous frog, electrocuting everything around it. The powerful monster calls them reckless and activates his protective shield, shouting that they've just invaded the tribe and killed his people, so he will curse them all. She worries because this is not good, and a massive power rises toward her in the form of a bird, causing her to slowly fall as she's injured. She is forced to use her divine purification and recovers, regaining her confidence and launching more lightning at the chief's shield, which starts getting hit from all sides. Her army of sparrows also helps, using their electric attacks in unison, causing more and more damage to the shield until it completely shatters. The frog, which is huge, uses its mountain-devouring demon frog ability. She can't believe what happens next, as the monster grows absurdly, even though it was already massive before. The demon frog immediately lashes out its tongue and captures Qin Shuang, swallowing her right after. She simply refuses to accept this outcome, but with the frog's colossal size, her lightning attacks become completely insignificant. Suddenly, Hanwu contacts her, leaving her in disbelief that he's calling in the middle of this situation. She decides to answer, and he asks where she is, because the decor of the place is quite unique. This makes her furious, telling him to mind his own business. The MC asks if she wants his cooperation, pointing out that in at most 10 minutes, all of her thunder sparrows will be annihilated. She asks why she should agree, but quickly changes her mind and says it's fine, making it clear that if they win, she will take the divine body of the semi-divine black frog, and he can have everything else. The MC says that's fine, and just asks her to issue a quick divine command, making the Thunder Sparrows pick up his elite troops, and he sends his location. The sparrows arrive at the scene, surprising him as they were very fast. He waves to show where he is and mounts one of them. The skeletons do the same, and they all journey through the skies, descending and attacking all the enemy frogs. The MC laments that the skeleton soldiers are really weak, as part of his army has been decimated, but on the other hand, the total number of fragments has increased. He continues flying over the area, saying it's time for the bone controller to take action. His soldier starts concentrating a powerful magic and summons a new giant skeleton, more powerful than the others, using the bone fragments scattered on the battlefield. The enemy frogs are performing a ritual, but the giant skeleton stomps on everything with its colossal size. The MC orders the Bone Restorer and his demon shaman bull to attack with full force. They waste no time and charge at the enemies, attacking every frog they come across. The Bone Restorer uses his power, summoning several skeletons from the dead bodies of the frogs. The monsters are confused by what they've just witnessed, but due to this distraction, they suffer several electric attacks from the sparrows flying overhead. The chief admits he underestimated his opponent and, for that reason, decides to fight seriously, using his dark magic dusk. This causes a black moon to appear in the sky, frightening Hanwoo, as it is a terrifying magic that drains the life force of all the skeleton soldiers. He worries about what to do since all his familiars are there. Suddenly, he hears a telepathic message from his other familiars, who say they are willing to fight for their god. He is happy, as it is John Feng and the dwarf Red Forge, and the situation has just turned perfect since a new day has arrived, meaning he can summon them. That said, the gate opens, and his familiar enters the battle, with all the dwarves following him. Not only them, but the locusts also arrive at the battle, telling their god they are ready to be used for the sacrifice. This catches his attention, and he immediately activates his sacrificial ritual on all the locusts. He notices that the reward for the sacrifice is simply perfect, and wonders if the heavens are on his side. The item is the Sacred Flame of Hope, a special item that dispels darkness, eliminates any negative status, and grants positive energy to the familiars. Raising the torch, he asks for the light of the sacred flame to dispel all the darkness in the area. This worries the monsters, as their advantage has just gone down the drain. The MC simply smiles and says now it's time for the counterattack. The chief can't accept that this person has a divine item and is dissolving his dark art, as this should be completely impossible. Meanwhile, the MC flies over the battlefield, dispelling all the dark magic in the area, and upon observing the monster, he begins to suspect that Qin Shuang was swallowed by the demon frog, which devours even mountains. Thinking this, he asks his strongest familiars to kill this chief. The battle between them begins. The familiars focus on the monster's belly, which gives Qin Shuang an opening to escape, as she split the monster's stomach. She flies as high as possible, gathering an enormous amount of power, and releases it all at once, hitting the monster. Then, she gathers all the sparrows to attack as well, along with the Red Forged dwarves, causing several explosions on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the giant skeleton keeps trampling the remaining living frogs. The monster, despite losing, warns them not to get too cocky, but before he can finish saying that, the MC appears with his sacred item, illuminating the area and giving Qin Shuang the opportunity to unleash her most powerful attack on the chief, thus winning the battle. She informs him that, as promised, she will only take the chief's body, and the rest can go to him. The demon frog begs for its life and is willing to give everything it has in exchange for its survival. The MC says that after killing him, everything will be his anyway. He says this, and his familiar finishes off the enemy. Half an hour passes, and they gather all the treasures from the area. He asks if she's sure she doesn't want to keep any part of it. She says that a deal is a deal, so everything will go to him. Except for the chief's body, he puts a crown on his head and asks if he can at least keep this as payment for her help. She feels embarrassed, but says it's fine, she'll accept. The professor speaks telepathically, congratulating Hanwoo for doing a great job, and tells him that the directors of the top universities are interested in meeting him, so he asks him to return as soon as possible. Tianwen asks both students to follow him, but warns them not to say anything foolish, since they are about to meet some professors who are in the true God realm. They arrive at the place where everyone is gathered. The MC starts wondering if these examiners can see his unique life sacrifice ability, since everyone there is a true god. The bald one starts talking about Qin Shuang, saying that she comes from a family of true gods, and that they have many resources. He mentions that she is in possession of a divine body, as she kept the demon frog's body, and will probably create a lordly life form. Having said that, he asks how much divinity she currently has. Another examiner is surprised to see that she hasn't even ascended to the demigod status yet, and is already preparing a divine body for cultivation, and it seems the chance of success is high. The most incredible part is that even the officials, when they were demigods for years, couldn't achieve a lordly life form. The girl replies that she has 4 points of divinity. The MC, looking at her, thinks she's very clever, as she secretly accumulated 4 points of divinity and was probably invested with about 400 million divine power. Definitely, she is the face of wealth. The bald man speaks again, saying that her qualifications meet all the requirements of all the universities, and that, after completing her cultivation, she will be able to apply to any of them, finally experiencing university life. She thanks him for his generosity. He changes his expression as he now begins to speak about Hanwoo, and starts by asking if his familiars are really locusts. The MC replies that they are. With that answer, the examiner already marks an X on his report. Then he asks if his current divine points are 1. He responds affirmatively. The examiner marks another X on the paper and says he will ask one last question, wanting to know how he obtained the hero Jian Feng and the weakened version of the Lord Skeleton's incarnation that he showed in the exam. He is somewhat pleased, as it appears the examiners cannot see his ability, so he doesn't need to let them know about it. With that in mind, he says he cannot answer that question. The bald man apologizes, saying that the student does not meet any of their university's requirements, and, if he still wishes to apply, asks him only to keep working hard. The director, seeing this meeting, regrets it, as it seems the 3 professors are unable to see how excellent Hanwoo is. He just smiles and says he understands, as he will continue to work hard. The bald man wishes him all the luck in the world from here on. Tianwen tells the MC that the top universities have high standards, so it's really hard to get in. But he also mentions that there are several elite universities that would love to recruit him if he's interested. He says it's not necessary, as his true desire is to enter Imperial University. He says this and leaves the room, meeting Qin Shuang. She tells him that she's going to cultivate a lordly life form and then join one of the top universities as a reserve student, where the resources are more suitable. Knowing this, she asks if he is really going to Imperial University. Hanwoo replies that he definitely is. He says this, imagining that his parents were lost in the Star Sea of Chaos, so it will be necessary to join that specific university to learn more about it. She says she understands and that she's also going to Imperial University in the capital. After all, as a reserve student, she will definitely progress greatly with the resources they will offer, and probably, when they meet again, they will both be opponents. After saying that, she tells him it's not too late to become her servant before she enters the university. He turns around and replies that he has made a lot of money on his own, so it makes no sense to become her servant. Besides, he informs her that he has some things to take care of, so he will be leaving. She says goodbye, thinking that, although he's a bit silly, he's still cute, especially in that skeleton form. Afterward, in his divine realm, he begins to absorb the divinity card. His level is that of a divine being. His divine talent is the Chosen One. He possesses various powers. Currently, he has 219 extraordinary life forms, 49 million elite life forms, and 2 billion ordinary life forms. His familiars include John Feng, the Red Dwarf, the Bone Controller, the Bone Revitalizer, and the Demon Shaman Bull, along with many others. He is pleased because with the money he has, he will be able to upgrade his familiars' equipment, drastically increasing their battle power. However, he is currently interested in building a life leap path for the locusts. Starting by using the immolation fountain, a black cloud moves toward the locusts. He notices that their resistance and toughness have increased. Essentially, there was a significant boost in their resilience and resistance to negative effects. Clearly, it is an evolution in the defensive direction. He then decides to use the Dark Frog's heart to build the path for dark spells. With this, they will be able to fly stealthily and cause all kinds of negative effects on enemies. Now they are on the path of assassination and should be called dark spell insects. Suddenly, one of his familiars contacts him telepathically, apologizing for the stupidity of their people and explaining that during the decomposition process, they accidentally dropped the sacred staff into the decomposition machine. Apologizing once again, he flies off at full speed since this will be a huge waste, and he needs to check it out personally. When he arrives, he finds the younger brother of the Hammer of Gods begging for forgiveness, having dropped the sacred staff into the decomposition machine. He tells him to calm down and simply remember this mistake so that something like this doesn't happen in the future. After saying this, he looks at the machine processing the staff. In exchange for using such a great item in the machine, the system provides 3 different items: 2 fire crystals, a golden crystal, and a source of sacred artifacts that can be used to improve and repair sacred items. He is surprised, as it seems possible to repair sacred items, and wonders if his law of gluttony, which seems to be broken, could be repaired. He says this while looking at the options in his system. A notification informs him that common life forms can evolve into elite life forms by consuming more than 999 times their own energy. He notes that it used to be 1,000 times, but now the requirement has decreased, deducing that with the sacred source, it should be possible to completely fix the law of gluttony. However, the sacred artifact source needs to be disassembled from sacred items, and he can't imagine where he would get so many sacred items. He decides to check what people online are saying. The topic is, the user possesses a weapon that is both divine and sacred, damaged in a battle in the wilderness, and without it, their combat ability has decreased significantly. Now they are seeking help from someone in the divine realm to restore it, and any amount of divine power will suffice as long as the artifact can be repaired. The first person tells them to give up, as it's impossible. The second says they once tried to fix it, but to no avail. The MC wonders if the sacred relic source could repair a weapon that is both divine and sacred. With this in mind, he replies to the forum that he might be able to help, and if they want to try, they should contact him privately. This person quickly calls the MC, surprising him with the speed of the response, and when he answers, the person asks if he can really help him restore the weapon he has. He responds that he'll at least try since this guy posted so long ago and apparently hasn't found a solution, so he has nothing to lose. He asks him to trust him and send some sacred relics. The guy says he already downloaded the anti-fraud system from the divine realm, so there's no point in trying to trick him. After that, he asks what level of relic will be needed, mentioning that he can give anything below level 4, but if a higher level is needed, it will take some time to get it. Hanwoo is surprised that this person has level 4 relics, meaning he's pretty wealthy. The MC smiles and says that level 1 will be enough. Immediately, a giant box appears in front of him, startling him because it was sent so quickly. He stands up, surprised, thinking there are probably about 100 sacred relics inside, and wondering if he should block this guy and run off with the items. However, he decides against it since the Divine Realm's anti-fraud system seems quite intimidating. He just takes the relics and throws them all into the decomposition machine. 2 hours later, he receives 109 sacred relics. He keeps 9 of them for himself and enters the remaining 100 into the system, successfully sending them to the user who requested help. Soon after, this person calls him Master, saying that he saved him a lot with that help, and begs him to assist in his divine realm as well. He notices that this person's name is Zhang, and replies that what he enjoys most is helping people. This guy keeps channeling energy for now. At another time, at school, Tianwen is happy because he obtained the level 3 divine item from Letian. Back to the present, the MC calls the professor, who answers by asking what the problem is. Hanwoo says there isn't any major problem, and that he just wanted to ask a few questions, like how he could obtain resources to upgrade the core level of the divine realm, as he searched online and found nothing. The professor explains that resources like divine pulpits, divinities, battle fragments, and others are very rare to be available online, because whenever they are listed, someone buys them immediately. He makes an offer. If his student helps defeat Lydian, he will give his collection as a reward. The MC thanks him. The professor continues explaining, saying that actually, there is another way to obtain resources, and in fact, he himself had a similar problem with not being able to carry good relics due to a low-level core. In that situation, he sought help from a senior who took him to the Blood Arena, where the winner of each competition receives a divine realm core fragment. With this explanation, he asks Hanwoo what he thinks, reminding him that losing will result in a significant loss of his army. However, if he wins, he can get core fragments. The MC thinks about how he recently spent a lot of money evolving his followers, and is looking for an opportunity to test them. For this reason, he decides to say there's no problem since he lacks everything except followers. The next day, at the Blood Arena, both are present, and the MC says the place is truly magnificent. The professor asks them to wear a mask that prevents detection by demigods or anyone below that level, as they are in the outer realm, which is quite dangerous. The examiner asks them to fill out the form first. Meanwhile, the professor explains that the competition is divided into 3 categories based on the level of the competitors, for divine beings, demigods, and true gods. So, unless competitors specifically request a match, battles between different levels usually don't happen. Additionally, there is no limit to the number of followers in the army, so the defeat in the competition is declared when the follower mortality rate exceeds 50%. Some people persist, and the mortality rate reaches 100%. Shortly after this explanation, the system informs the MC that he has been matched with an opponent, so he should prepare for the broadcast. Then, he is sucked into another dimension, startling him as he didn't expect things to happen so quickly. Soon, he appears in another place. His opponent begins by intimidating him, asking if he's a rookie but tells him not to worry, as the Rat Lord will finish this quickly. The audience laments that an inexperienced rookie will face the brutal rat right away. Hanwoo starts to reflect that his first opponent seems to be a rat disciple, and has a terrible reputation for being brutal. The system requests him to release his followers, as the match will officially start in 3 minutes. The buck-toothed guy wastes no time and summons his rats as followers, declaring that he will kill everything in front of him. The MC laughs, asking if he really wants to compete in numbers, and summons his army of locusts. The Rat Lord laughs upon seeing that his opponent's main followers are locusts, and is even more certain that the match will end before it starts. He says this, and a notification appears, informing them that the battle is about to begin. The rats prepare their bows, and, at the signal, shoot all their arrows. The MC immediately commands his locusts to activate their shields, successfully defending against the attack. The buck-toothed guy orders them to keep shooting, but Hanwoo shouts for his dark insects to launch a surprise attack. The familiar was flying over the rats' backs and, as commanded, uses its special ability on all of them, leaving them in a state of confusion. Then, he shouts for his demonic insects to kill all the enemies. They prepare their stingers and charge toward the still dazed rats. The audience is left in disbelief, as it was overwhelming. The current survival score for Hanwoo is 99%, while the buck-toothed guy's followers are at 22%. He screams that this is impossible and begs for it to stop, admitting defeat. Because of this, all the insects stop attacking, and under the pile of dead rats, an item appears. Hanwoo approaches and notices it's a fragment of the divine core, commenting that it looks very much like his life sacrifice ability. The system announces that the game is over, and both will be transported back to the waiting area. The professor greets him, saying he did an excellent job since he won the first competition, and also gained a lot of divine power, and asks if he would like to proceed to the second round, as the family members did not suffer many losses. He further explains that if he wins again, he will earn 10% more fragments of the divine core than before. He responds that he would love to, excited since his family members need to train anyway. After that, 32 days passed, and he is happy because he won everything, but exploded 100 million of his locusts. However, it was worth it, as after 89 consecutive victories, he obtained many fragments of the divine core. With the current amount, he can upgrade his level to 7. Even though he is pleased with this, he thinks that it is becoming increasingly difficult to get stronger, as the amount of fragments required to reach level 8 is greater than the combined total of the previous levels. The professor comments that, in fact, with the current strength of his family members, he could try challenging the demigods. The MC asks if he will receive more rewards for challenging a demigod while only at the divine level. He replies that he would earn 10 times more than he would in regular competitions. He gives an example, saying that if Hanwoo wins the match, he will have 90 consecutive victories multiplied by 10, resulting in 90 times the normal amount of fragments from the divine core. He ponders whether it is worth the risk. The examiner presents the form for inner-level challenge registration. Then, he asks if he has really thought this through, as it is a cross-level challenge. The MC replies that he definitely wants to. In the arena, everyone is commenting about the Locust Boy, who has been in the bloody arena for about 30 days and now thinks he can do whatever he wants just because he is the big star of the tournament, challenging the strongest. One guy comments that the demigods have higher levels of divine core and can carry superior sacred artifacts, so it is crazy for a Locust Boy to challenge them. Another comments that the kid needs to get a beating to learn a lesson. The professor warns that at that exact moment, the odds are 1 in 100, and even the entire audience does not like him. He says he is fine with that, and since he cannot bet on himself, asks the professor to bet 10 million power on him. Tianwen enjoys seeing all this confidence and says he will bet an additional 5 million from his own pocket, since all hopes rest completely on him, and also warns that if he wins, he will gift a magical weapon. The MC thanks him for his generosity, thinking that he doesn't even care about a magical weapon, as he is just excited to fight someone so strong. He goes to his divine realm, as he hasn't added any sacred artifacts to his divine core, and wonders what he should add, as the law of gluttony and the pearls of poisonous mist seem almost insignificant. Suddenly, the guy who had helped him before contacts him, asking if his master has extracted the source of sacred items that day. Hanwoo confirms if this guy can really find level 4 or lower sacred items. He replies that he has a large stock of level 4 or lower sacred items and can send them if needed. Excited, he responds that he actually needs powerful level 2 sacred items, preferably with poison, earth, darkness, and fire attributes. Hardly asking for this, a giant box appears before him, coming to the conclusion that this guy is definitely very rich. He starts by acquiring the level 2 sacred relic, Lava Orb of Earth and Fire. It has earth and fire attributes, which can improve the defense and resistance of his family members, as well as enhance their recovery rate. The second item is a level 2 sacred relic, the Nail of Shadows. This has a shadow attribute. When charged to the domain core, it allows the compatible family member to understand the level 2 ability, restricting the opponent's movement by nailing their shadow. He finds both interesting, as they are good for the submerged locusts and the locusts of the Dark Curse. That said, he decides to combine the two relics, causing a massive explosion in the sky. Then, he summons his locusts to absorb the new power, and immediately they become more powerful, as they have evolved once again. This makes him more confident, as future battles will be promising. Hardly finishing this thought, he is summoned by the battle arena, which asks the competitors to go immediately to the preparation arena. He teleports right away. Upon arriving at the battle arena, he finds the crowd cheering frantically for Mr. Elephant. The demigod is pleased, as it must be quite a stroke of luck to encounter an inexperienced rookie in the bloody arena, and he asks if he is ready to die along with his family members. He also says it is admirable for someone of low level to challenge a demigod, but makes it clear that courage is not strength, and for this reason, he will show the terror that someone of this level can be, subsequently summoning his army of giant mammoths. The audience supports him, urging him to crush everything and put on a show in this battle. He mounts his giant mammoth and asks the MC to do his best to entertain the crowd. He responds that it's fine and asks for his swarm of locusts to appear, feeling confident in his dark curse locust, as it has been nurtured by the combination of the law of gluttony and the shadow nail. The explosive submerged locust also had a combination of gluttony and the lava of earth and fire. His opponent finds this interesting and believes the fight will be cool, then asks his army of mammoths to attack the locusts that are on the way. Hanwoo does the same and commands the dark cursed locusts to attack, then launches their stingers, completely immobilizing the monster's shadow upon hitting it. The big guy asks what cheap trick he is using, but before he can finish, another swarm of locusts attacks using toxic explosion. However, the thunder mammoth remains still, showing no reaction. His master makes it clear that it doesn't matter if the locusts have become a transcendent form of life, as his giant mammoth would never be harmed, even if it stood still forever. The MC asks if he is sure about that. Then, a colossal explosion erupts in the arena. Mr. Mammoth realizes that Hanwoo is trying to win by numbers and decides not to let that happen, ordering his army to advance as quickly as possible. The MC does the same and commands them to explode, causing more explosions towards the mammoths. The demigod decides to resort to 3 divine arts: armor, blood chi, and healing. His wounded mammoths begin to rise, gaining significant resistance against the explosions. He admits he didn't expect to have to use a divine art, and for this reason, he acknowledges Hanwoo's strength. Therefore, he states that after killing 50% of his army, he will allow him to surrender to avoid further losses. The MC simply smiles, asking if he thinks that's all he has, and shouts that giving up is not an option, calling for his demonic bull clan to emerge. They charge toward the mammoths, leaving his opponent frightened, as Hanwoo indeed has a demonic bull as a familiar, watching as his mammoths are defeated one by one. Then, the gate opens, as it is now the skeleton clan's turn to attack, led by the skeleton lord, bone controller, and bone restorer. The MC asks the bone restorer to decide what will happen in the battle, making the controller jealous. His servant leaps toward the mammoths on the ground and begins to use his magic to summon them from the dead. Mr. Mammoth starts to worry, as these skeletons are far too annoying, but makes it clear that it is not enough to shake a demigod, ordering his family members to attack using the war gun skill and commanding his powerful mammoths to completely crush the enemies. The MC orders the demonic bull clan to retreat and asks the bone controller to advance. He stands in the middle of the arena, gathering all the bones present, and his size grows in a surreal manner, giant, dozens of times larger than the giant mammoths. Mr. Mammoth is intimidated by this heroic form of life, but uses his multiplication ability, making his mammoth grow colossal as well. After that, he charges toward the giant skeleton and tries to destroy it with his tusks, but he is blocked. Furthermore, he starts shouting and lifts the mammoth with all his strength, throwing it down to the ground. Then he jumps and attacks with his fist, but the mammoth manages to hold the punch with its trunk and throws him to the ground this time, raising its legs and trying to stomp on him. However, the bone controller manages to jump back in time to avoid being crushed and counterattacks, kicking the mammoth in the face. The MC shouts that it's time to end this, and his familiar obeys, jumping on the monster and attacking multiple times, grabbing one of the tusks and breaking it in half. Mr. Mammoth is terrified of the situation, asking his family members to get up and react, but the bone controller doesn't give him time and grabs the other tusk, breaking it as well. Hanwoo admits to being surprised, as he made the bone controller learn hand-to-hand combat, but he didn't expect it to work so well, especially since it is gigantic. Hardly finishing this thought, his familiar kicks the mammoth, sending it flying toward its master. He orders his army of giant mammoths to surround the enemy until they wear him down. They obey and start running toward the bone controller, but without giving much of a chance, he stomps, exploding some mammoths on one side and kicking others away, finishing with several punches to the ground, tossing the mammoths all over the arena. However, the army of mammoths is still very large, and many of them manage to reach the familiar, hitting its leg and making it fall to the ground, allowing everyone to swarm and attack. The enemy shouts to finish off the giant skeleton at all costs, but the MC doesn't stay still and asks his demonic bull to rescue the bone controller. The army arrives at the battle, beating the enemies, and the skeletal mage takes the opportunity to use his resurrection magic, summoning the dead mammoths and using them to attack as well. The audience is incredulous at the battle, as the family members of the Lord of Elephants are already outnumbered, and the Grasshopper Boy has achieved total annihilation. Then, he admits defeat and gives up the fight, resulting in a fragment appearing on top of the pile of bodies. The MC approaches to pick it up and notes how heavy the fragment is coming from a demigod. Suddenly, someone calls for Hanwoo, saying that the administration of the Bloody Arena wants to meet him, being teleported immediately without even realizing it. Upon arriving at the location, a person asks him not to be afraid, as they will not harm him. He asks what they intend, dragging him forcefully there. The administration explains that they watched the fight, and it was an excellent demonstration of talent, proof that he is worthy of being the heir of the Bloody Arena, explaining that this place is a test to choose a successor for the master, and that anyone who manages to win the challenges and the rankings will be in a position to be the successor in the Bloody Arena. With that said, they ask if he would like to be that person. He is left speechless, having been caught off guard by such news, especially since this arena gathers an absurd number of people and races that visit it every day, and the amount of divine power obtained by these individuals is no small matter. He doesn't understand how such a great opportunity has fallen into his lap so easily. Taking a deep breath and imagining that, before making a decision, he needs to know how many successors still exist in this arena. He then asks what the advantages and responsibilities of being a successor of the Bloody Arena are. The hologram soon notes that Hanwoo is not there for his own interests, and this is surprising. Due to this sincerity, they decide to explain, stating that there are currently 349 successors, among them 221 divine beings, 118 demigods, 9 true gods, and only 1 supreme god. They also explain that upon becoming a successor, he will receive the eternal coordinates of the Bloody Arena and will be able to teleport, without any equipment, to any of the realms of the arena, at a cost of 1 million divine power per teleport. In addition, he will also receive the license to build a special blood arena in his divine realm to create familiars. He then explains that upon reaching 500 successors, the Bloody Arena will initiate the succession ceremony, which will take place in the arena itself, and the best among the 500 successors will become the master of the Bloody Arena. The MC quickly realizes that, given the nature of this arena, the succession ceremony will definitely not be simple, as there will be 500 people fighting, and only the last one standing will become the master. However, he imagines his current position, now entering as the 350th, and concludes that it will take a long time to reach 500 people, potentially having become the supreme god by the time it arrives. The leader of the arena asks once again if he is willing to become a successor. He replies that he is. With that, a notification arrives, congratulating him for being the 350th person to become a successor of the Bloody Arena. Suddenly, a laser hits his chest, leaving him confused, and a light appears above him. The teacher who was in the room runs toward him, telling Hanwoo that he is indeed a lucky star, as they made a fortune there. Hearing this leaves him confused until Tianwen hands him something, asking him to keep it. He looks at the screen of the cell phone and simply cannot believe that there are so many zeros there, as his account now stands at 1 billion. He comments that it is really hard to imagine how to spend so much, but suggests that he buy a suitable magical weapon first. Hanwoo asks if he is sure about that, as he is still just a divine being, not even a demigod, so he is not sure if he could control a magical weapon. He asks him not to worry, as a teacher, he would not suggest something that would harm him. Moreover, he knows a very good store that he can recommend. The MC says that this is perfect, as it is quite a coincidence since he wanted a new weapon. Suddenly, Mr. Mammoth appears running, calling out, "Grasshopper boy," and saying that he finally found him. The MC runs behind the teacher, asking him to save him. The teacher protects him, saying that in his presence, no one would dare harm one of his students. The bearded man asks them to calm down, as he is not there for revenge or anything like that, and explains that he would just like to befriend them, saying his name is Meng and he is a freshman at Western University. The MC greets him and asks if he is really from that university, making sense of why he is so powerful. He comments that Hanwoo is still not old enough to take the exams and would like to know which university he is thinking of going to. The MC replies that he is not going to any, as he is still a high school student and therefore cannot even take those exams. The guy is flabbergasted, unable to believe that this is true, and says it is impossible. It must be a joke. He asks why he would lie, adding that the person behind him is his teacher and could guarantee it. Tianwen confirms the information and mentions that the MC was even invited by some universities, but his goal is to get into Imperial University. However, the professor responsible for that university was not interested in him. Mr. Mammoth says he understands and praises him for thinking big, as Imperial University is the most powerful among the top 3, and wishes him all the luck in the world to succeed one day. He explains that he will report this case to his own university that night, and probably the higher-ups will contact him, in addition to asking him to keep his family members updated as much as possible to get on the university's reserve list. Hanwoo, suspicious, asks if he will really help him like this, just out of the blue. The bearded man laughs and says that this is obvious, as he sees great potential in him, but makes it clear that the path to becoming a demigod is long, and it is naturally easier to have several partners who can trust each other than to fight alone. He also explains that after recommending him to the university, and if he gets in, he himself will also receive a bonus in the form of resources, so it is a mutual gain. Hanwoo says he understands and thanks him for the help. The demigod says it's nothing special and only asks that he continue working hard. He suggests that he invest heavily in the main familiars and, in the near future, in heroic life forms. After all this, the MC goes to Wanbao Street, heading towards the treasure pavilion. The professor accompanying him asks to enter, and a beautiful woman is inside, welcoming the two of them and asking what level of equipment they are looking for, or perhaps if they are there to meet the master blacksmith. They walk inside, and she mentions that she has already contacted Master Tony, informing him that Tianwen is there to see him. The MC finds the name Master Tony strange, as it sounds more like a good hairdresser, and wonders if he is really a professional blacksmith. After walking a bit, she politely asks them to enter the portal. The two stare at each other for a moment and decide to cross it. Upon arriving on the other side, Tony tells Tianwen that this time he brought a very fat sheep. The MC laughs, wondering if it's too late to run away. The professor steps in front and asks the blacksmith to be serious, as there is a student present. The hefty man decides to explain how things work there, stating that the shop is friendly to everyone, but there are no special discounts for students. This leaves him upset, as there should be some student packages since it's not easy to make money as a student, and he had to work so hard to earn $1 billion. The professor tells Hanwoo that, despite Master Tony's tough talk, He is an excellent blacksmith. The hefty man feels happy to hear this, as, after so many years, he finally hears a kind word from the professor. But inside, he wonders who he is calling tough. He invites the MC into the tent as he will show him his work. The place is huge, truly impressing Hanwoo. The master craftsman explains that each piece has his seal of approval and is made by him personally. As they walk around, the professor asks the MC what he liked most inside. He ponders, considering the possibility of having to face a test from Western University in the future, noting that goo pots are worth 4 divine beings, which is less than 600 million divine beings. But without thinking too much, he says he wants that. The 2-star magical weapon, the goo pot, explaining that this item contains a space that can host up to 100,000 insects for the goo refinement ceremony. The insects will fight each other, and the last survivor has a certain chance of leveling up, potentially reaching the heroic life form. The professor is pleased with this choice because, although the goo pot is not very powerful in itself, it is the most suitable artifact for Hanwoo. Tony informs that it costs 4 divinities or 580 million divine power, and asks if he thinks it's worth paying such a price. The MC is shocked by the price, but Tianwen draws the blacksmith's attention, asking him to charge less or give it for free, or else he will scold him. He says it's fine and charges 600 million, even throwing in a 0-star artifact, the Eye of Detection. After that, the two leave happy with their purchases. But the blacksmith calls out to his guest, saying he created a new special artifact based on the remnants of a lost civilization and mentions that it might suit his style. The professor takes the artifact in his hand to check what it is, and, after analyzing it carefully, begins to yell at his friend because, despite treating him well, he's still treating him like an idiot, and says that this ball has no power at all and asks why he's trying to trick him. Tony asks him to calm down, saying he will explain, and informs him that it's called Greedy Wolf and came from a civilization lost long ago. This greedy wolf frequently liked to plunder, and, as everyone knows, artifacts can't be used by another master. After plundering these items, they were treated as mere scrap. The ruler of that civilization was particularly saddened and mobilized all the skilled artisans, finally creating the divine artifact, Greedy Wolf. Having said that, he informs the MC that he will offer a special discount, and because it's an artifact from a lost civilization, he will charge only 1 billion divine power. He finds this price very cheap, as it's an artifact that caused the destruction of a powerful civilization, and wonders if this is some kind of joke. The chubby guy comments that the artifact still has minor flaws. It can devour artifacts to grow, but it will grow 10 times slower, and after devouring, it can inherit some passive abilities, but it can't inherit divine spells. The professor asks if this isn't just a waste. He replies no, asking to be insulted all he wants but never dare insult his work. Hanwoo immediately says he'll buy it for 400 million. Tianwen asks him not to do that, as 400 million is a lot of money. In the MC's mind, this greedy wolf can devour artifacts, so he could take them from enemies to strengthen it, and tells the professor that he misunderstood, saying he really appreciates the artifact created by Master Tony, who was able to forge the greedy wolf with just a few fragments, but says that unfortunately, he's poor and only has 400 million left, asking him to sell the artifact for that amount. The chubby guy asks if he really values this item so much. He replies that of course he does. Knowing this, Tony decides to sell it for 400 million divine power, as money can't buy anyone's trust, thus handing over the item and saying the deal is done. After that, the MC returns home and begins a ritual, dripping a drop of blood on the goo pot, the greedy wolf artifact, and the Eye of Detection. The blood gathers in one place, and this makes him happy, as the goo pot has recognized him as its master. At that moment, a frog emerges from the item, and the MC asks it to start practicing immediately. Then, he wonders why the greedy wolf isn't reacting, and thinks maybe it wants more blood, questioning if it's a vampire. Suddenly, the artifact starts to glow brightly, and a wolf appears in front of him. He wonders if it's the greedy wolf, as it looks more like a dumb dog. The wolf immediately says it wants to eat artifacts, and the MC becomes thoughtful, as the law of gluttony affected it right after being summoned, and he doesn't know how on earth he's going to find artifacts to offer, since he's broke at the moment. Throwing a crystal he had at the moment, the wolf immediately jumps to devour it. Meanwhile, he decides to check on what his other familiars are doing. The locusts are training, the red dwarves are mining, the demon bulls are reading about building structures. Jian Feng is still meditating to increase his power, and the skeletons are feeding on crystals. He knows that thanks to the source of sacred items he obtained earlier, he finally repaired and upgraded his law of gluttony to level 3, and the effect at this level is quite strong, making it possible to evolve an elite life form just by eating. With his eyes still gleaming, he imagines that with a few more upgrades, common life forms could evolve into extraordinary life forms. So his locusts will evolve significantly if they have enough food. A week later, the time for a new sacrifice arrives. Raising his hand and saying he will sacrifice 13 billion locusts this time, a giant vortex appears, and he immediately notices the reward for sacrificing 13 billion locusts, which is much better than the last one. The first option is 10,000 night demon hunters, an extraordinary life form. The second option is a 3-star artifact, the Steel Blade. It allows core familiars to summon a steel blade as a weapon, increases strength against beasts by 15%, and adds a divine art called Sovereign. The third option is a level 2 sacred item, the Stone of Enlightenment. There is a chance for a core familiar to be transformed into a semi-human form. He thinks the last option is incredible and decides to choose it. The item then appears in his hand, and he immediately breaks it. A beam of light from the sky shooting toward the elite locusts, evolving all of them, leaving the MC amazed at what he is witnessing. Now, he possesses the Locust Man. It is an extraordinary life form, and its talents are flight, low intelligence, and a humanoid body. He is impressed because the faith power of his new familiar is extremely high, at 50,000 per day. At that moment, he receives a call from the professor. Tianwen tells him that Western University has issued a notice for him to take the test again, and an admissions professor will be coming to the school the next day to test him, asking him to prepare in advance. He thanks him for the warning. The next day at school, Shuju approaches him, asking how the divine realm has been lately, and says that if he needs some resources, just let him know. Although he can't get them himself, he has many demigods in the family who can. This makes him happy, and he asks if by chance he could get some divine core fragments, since he needs a certain amount to go from level 7 to 10. His friend says it won't be a problem, but unfortunately, it's quite expensive, and, even considering their relationship, it will still cost 400 million divine power. He says he understands, thinking that poverty really limits a person's evolution. Shuju offers an alternative, saying that his family made a proposal to sell him 1,000 skeleton knights, an extraordinary life form, which could compensate for that amount in divine power. The MC, without thinking twice, says it's a deal, since they're talking about skeleton knights. His friend feels a bit annoyed by such a quick response, thinking maybe he should have asked for the bone controller, a heroic life form. At that moment, Tianwen enters the room calling for Hanwu, informing him that the evaluator from Western University is waiting in the teacher's room. Upon arriving, he sees the bald man again, who comments that he remembers him as a student who didn't pass the test, but managed to get an internal recommendation, and says it won't help much since Western University is much harder than the high school exam. He also mentions that to prevent cheating, only core familiars authorized for the test will be allowed, and as far as he recalls, his familiars are locusts. After saying this, he asks the student if he has any questions. The student replies that he does not. The evaluator explains that the test is to invade a small civilized village on the outskirts of the field called Duolong City, and this place has a solid hierarchy and career system that will directly affect both the familiar and the master. Once recognized by the system as a disaster demon, the professionals in Duolong will hunt him down to completely destroy him. The mission is simple. He must kill at least one master who guards Duolong City. The MC asks how many troops and masters there are in this city. The man with the mustache replies that although the city is not large, the average population is 10 million, with more than 10% being professionals, and there are 5 heroes. For any additional information, he will have to explore on his own, and he is told that he has 1 hour to prepare. Hanwoo tells his professor that he would like to use the recently obtained class points to exchange for 3 level 1 sacred items. He is told to simply choose. After this, back in the core of the divine realm, he places the missing fragment, and with that, his divine core is upgraded to level 10, and the space has expanded. Now he decides to equip the 3 sacred items he just obtained, starting with a level 1 item, Poison Gland. Once loaded into the divine core, there is a chance that core familiars will acquire the poison attribute and develop a poison gland. The second is a level 1 sacred item, Earth Core. Once loaded into the divine core, there is a chance that core familiars will gain the earth attribute and improve their defense. Lastly, another level 1 item, the Goblin Short Bow. It is both a sacred item and a divine weapon. When loaded into the divine core, there is a chance that core familiars will gain the ability to summon a goblin short bow as a weapon. The host god will also gain the ability to summon the bow himself. All items were successfully loaded. The MC is excited since most of the locusts have poison glands. Half of the immolated locusts have improved defense, and almost all the locust men can now fight using the bow, so he is looking forward to an easy test. The next day at school, the evaluator informs Hanwoo that he and his familiars will be teleported together to the outskirts of Duolong City. He then touches the crystal and feels a strange sensation being thrown to the test site right after. Several notifications appear, stating that an intruder has been detected, and asking him to leave the current realm, or he will be labeled as a demon and eliminated. Since he did not retreat, the MC was identified as the Demon Locust King. He notices a panel opens in front of him, where it states that he is the Demon Locust King and is at level 80, even showing his equipment and abilities. He is surprised they can even see the levels of the 2 newly born heroic locusts. The Locust Man is at level 60, possessing some talents in addition to abilities. He tries to understand what it means to be at level 60, as it's difficult to know without references. His familiar approaches, saying that there are creatures attacking them. The MC immediately mounts on its back and asks to go check out the enemy. At the scene is Thorn, a second-class adventurer who is impressed by the absurd number of monsters appearing. By his side is the Fist of Fury, a first-class adventurer who tells his friend to cheer up. After all, the more monsters there are, the more rewards they will get, and when they get enough money, they can advance their classes. Nearby is a ghost, and by his side is a female adventurer, the Water Sage. Also present is the Fire Mage, saying that the locusts are weak. No matter how many appear, they will keep dying. Thorn warns them to be careful, as it's impossible to predict what will come next. The MC arrives at the scene and sees these adventurers killing his locusts, deciding to use the Firefly Detection Eye. First identifying Thorn, who is at level 37, and his profession is warrior. He also notices that all 4 of them wear the same style of badge. The difference is that Thorn's emblem is made of silver, while the other 3 have bronze emblems, leading the MC to conclude that this guy is the team leader. The adventurer is visibly surprised by the absurd number of locusts appearing and tells his group to retreat, saying they can't kill them all. Hanwoo orders the Locust Man to go test their strength. Landing on the ground, the Locust Man makes it clear that no one will be leaving. The adventurers are in disbelief, realizing it's a third-class monster, and they all start running, trying to buy time. They unleash one of their most powerful attacks, but it only leaves a scratch on the Locust Man. One of them admits that there's nothing they can do since the monster before them is too strong, just before he gets kicked, sending his sword flying away. The familiar now decides to hunt down the remaining adventurers. Afterward, all four are captured, and the MC stands before them with a menacing aura. One adventurer begs the ugly monster in front of them to stay away. Hearing this makes the MC furious, saying he's a handsome guy and asking why they're calling him ugly. He then says they can live if they just answer one question. He wants to know how he looks in their eyes. The boxer responds that he will never answer a monster's question. For saying this, he gets punched hard in the stomach by the Locust Man, even shocking Hanwoo, who remarks that he was just trying to scare him, but his familiar actually hit him. The girls start screaming in panic as their friend lies unconscious on the ground, but the MC orders his venomous insect to silence them all at once. Thorn asks what the MC really wants. Changing his expression, the MC says he's already asked once and just wants to know how he looks in their eyes. The swordsman answers that he has big eyes and long antennae. This makes the MC think that it's the description of a giant locust man. Apparently, the area is deliberately tarnishing his image for the invaders. He says, "This is great," and asks them to keep answering his questions. 3 hours later, he unties Thorn, saying he got everything he wanted and that he can leave now. Thorn flees at full speed, knowing he urgently needs to report to the Adventurers Guild. Naturally, the MC begins following him through the air and becomes aware of the location of the others. He apologizes, saying he can't have his whereabouts exposed so easily, and asks him to rest a bit before leaving, casting a spell that puts him to sleep. Hanwoo becomes thoughtful, realizing that according to Thorn, there are millions of adventurers in the city, and if they attack the place directly, they will likely lose. He concludes that he must find a way to boost his army's combat power to at least level 60 or higher. Nearby, he notices the presence of goblins, which, like it or not, are better than nothing. He realizes that all the goblins are low level, but their leader is at level 62, reaching the 3rd level, and wonders how he obtained that class. Curious, he asks the leader how he achieved it. The leader responds that he ate many class fragments left behind by adventurers, and that's how he got a class. The MC is pleased with this information, realizing that apparently, if his locusts eat 39 class fragments, they too can obtain a class. He immediately summons his locusts and gives 2 orders: to keep an eye on the Adventurers Guild and to collect class fragments. 3 days later, he has gathered plenty of fragments and thinks it's time to start fusing them. He begins his ritual, and the class selection appears, offering options like mage, fighter, warrior, and archer. Choosing the last option, archer, he figures that a long-range attack method is perfect for the Locust Man. The MC is pleased since the bow worked perfectly on his familiar, and now he wishes he could absorb another corresponding 1st level class to boost it straight to the 3rd level. At that moment, one of his locusts reports that they found a cave, and the pressure emanating from it was terrifying. He asks them to take him to the location. Upon arrival, his locust says the place is just ahead, and Hanwoo immediately senses the terrifying aura coming from within, as it even has a hint of divine power, making it definitely worth investigating. He enters the cave accompanied by 2 locust men, and looking down, he notices a giant dragon sleeping in the cave. He recalls the professor once saying that some civilizations from other realms used to isolate enemies they couldn't easily kill, and apparently, the black dragon in front of him is a poor creature sealed there by some powerful being. A locust then uses its detection eye. This is the black dragon Elphus, level 103. Sealed. Its original level is 149. Its profession is a rebel, belonging to a special race, with other details unknown. Suddenly, the dragon opens its eyes, leaving the locusts stunned. The MC yells at his familiars to stop, but both are trembling in fear. Elphys stands up and asks how they dare interrupt the meal of the great rebellious black dragon. He says this and prepares to attack, while the MC shouts for everyone to retreat. Several explosions follow, 5 minutes pass, and he returns to the dragon's lair, asking if it's done venting. The black dragon gets ready again, calling Hanwoo insignificant scum since he's trying to take advantage and, for that, will never be forgiven. The MC runs again, knowing there are still 4 minutes left. After 10 minutes, Hanwoo returns and tells the dragon he's not there to provoke him. On the contrary, he's there to help. Elphys says he has already seen through his tricks, so he asks him to leave immediately before he has to devour him whole. The MC grabs his bow and asks if, being trapped like that, he could devour anyone, launching an arrow that bounces off the dragon's scales. The dragon asks if he's really going to keep making insignificant attacks since, as a black dragon, he has absolute defense. Hanwoo summons his sword and says he'll pay to find out, delivering an attack that barely scratches him. Enraged, he asks to infuse 10,000 of divine power, knowing he needs to cause at least some damage for Elphys to cooperate. Then he unleashes much more powerful attacks, and this time, blood begins to flow. The dragon becomes furious, asking how he dares wound a supreme being in such a way. The MC replies that he has many more weapons, and if Elphys keeps talking nonsense, he might end up dead. Elphys asks what the MC wants after all. The MC says he has a dream, which is to kill the hero of Doran City, but with his current strength, that's not possible. Facing this hero is impossible, and for that reason he needs help. The dragon says he's been sealed there for many years and has no way to escape, so how could he help? He also explains that the chains binding him are special artifacts, created by the guild itself, and not even his dark power can destroy them, much less a common sword. Hanwoo asks if he's sure the chains are artifacts. He replies that yes, he is sure, as he would never stoop to lying. Knowing this, the MC summons an item, as he has a solution to this problem, then asks for the wolf cub to appear. The aura begins corroding the chain until it's destroyed, leaving the dragon surprised by what he's seeing, and he asks for help to quickly break the other chains, since the great black dragon Elphys commands him. Hanwoo gets irritated and asks what he just said. He repeats, saying to hurry and free the great black dragon that commands him. The MC points out that he just broke one of the chains and asks him to show a gesture of goodwill, as he hasn't done anything for him and even claimed to command him. The dragon asks what he wants. If it's to kill the hero, he already agrees, asking again to hurry and break the chains. Hanwoo changes his mind, asking the dragon to serve him for 100 years as a reward for freeing him. The dragon gets furious, asking if he's delusional. The MC makes it clear that he can save him, yes, just as easily as he can kill him. And if the dragon isn't willing to help, he can still be used as a stepping stone to increase his power, as he's heard that dragons are treasures from head to toe, and even the bones would fetch a fortune. Elphys is intimidated by this, and, with no other choice, agrees to serve him for 100 years, begging him to break the chains, as he doesn't want to spend another second trapped there. The MC tells him not to rush, as they still need to sign a contract. The dragon asks if he's trying to enslave him, warning that dragons will never be enslaved. The MC summons a crystal and says he's already sensed his weakness from afar, and will let him eat that resource only after signing the contract. The dragon sees no way out and signs, using his paw. With everything settled, the wolf cub jumps to devour the rest of the chains, as they are artifacts, destroying all of them. The cave completely explodes due to the dragon, who is happy to finally be free. After that, in Doran City's town hall, a meeting is taking place, and the Martial Saint hero reports that the black dragon has just been freed and asks for everyone to join forces to destroy him, as the seal must still be weak. Rose, who is also a saint hero, says the dragon will probably hide to regain all his strength, and since the area outside the city is vast, She suggests asking for the help of all adventurers in Doron City. Another hero says that the dark power emanating from the Black Dragon will cause a large number of monsters to grow stronger. This is Jamie, the Ice and Fire Sword hero, emphasizing that they should take the first step and initiate action before the monsters revolt. Carl asks if a single weakened dragon is really a reason for all this concern, and asks his dragon slayer brother what he thinks about it. He responds that a simple dragon isn't a reason for such a fuss, saying he's already killed one of the wind element alone, and although it was difficult, it wasn't impossible. Gordon says he understands, but warns that this dragon is different, as according to records, this one specifically is from the rebel race, so they shouldn't underestimate him. Ben asks if he's underestimating his strength. After all, he himself is a 4th Revolution Dragon Slayer, chosen by destiny itself, with the sole purpose of obliterating these monsters. The bearded man stays silent after hearing this. Ben only asks everyone to take care of the city's defense, while he personally deals with the escaped dragon. The archer says he supports him, and will also accompany him on this journey. At this moment, the MC is gathering various monsters, taking advantage of the Black Dragon's presence. He asks them all if they want to continue living under the massacre of adventurers, telling them that the great rebel, the Black Dragon Elphys, has summoned all the monsters to unite and form a monster alliance to fight against the Adventurers Guild. The monsters ask if it's really possible to gather the forces for such a thing. He imagines that, after all, the strength of his familiars is limited, so if he wants to win, he will need to use these shrimp and crabs to keep them under control. With that in mind, he tells all the monsters that he can help them improve, as this alliance offers a reward in the form of power crystals. In other words, any monster of any race can trade equipment and fragments. A few days pass, and the Black Dragon is offering his blood to help the MC advance to the 3rd level. However, he says he's getting a little dizzy from the blood loss, so he asks for 500 black crystals, as it's not a big deal. Hanwoo turns and tells him not to pretend to be weak, and besides, 500 black crystals are not cheap, and he'll pay that in installments. After that, the system informs him that there has been an advancement from the 2nd transformation profession to the 3rd transformation profession, Black Dragon Warrior. The talent is Black Dragon Blood. Its effect is a 50% increase in physical performance, a 50% increase in resistance to all elements, along with a huge increase in strength and affinity with the darkness attribute, as well as the ability to transform into the Black Dragon. He finds all of this interesting and asks to activate the transformation. His body immediately transforms into the new form. Now, his level is 125, with 85 max level familiars, along with divine creatures. His class is Black Dragon Warrior, among several other changes. He imagines that now he should be able to face the heroes alone. Suddenly, the Black Dragon becomes restless, prompting him to ask what's wrong. At that moment, some beams of light appear in the sky, and 2 heroes appear in front of him. Ben looks at the dragon and says he expected nothing less from a pureblood, commenting that his class will rise significantly after killing him, asking his colleague to raise a barrier so no other monsters can disturb them. The archer says it's fine, as he won't let anyone get close. He says this and uses his skill, creating a huge shield that covers the entire area. After doing this, he notices that the level 125 Locust King is present and didn't expect such a powerful monster to exist near the city, saying that in reality it doesn't matter since he won't allow it to interfere in the fight. Hanwoo is pleased as he wanted to practice his new skills by finding a hero to kill, but it turns out they came right to his door. He imagines this and uses the detection eye on the green archer. Upon doing so, he discovers that the hero's name is Carl Smith, and his level is 131. His occupation is Windrunner in the 4th transformation, and he has various skills. He wastes no time jumping and throwing his swords. However, The hero dodges and soon appears behind the MC, delivering an attack from two different directions, making him wonder why there are two of them, and he asks his locusts to urgently break the barrier. Meanwhile, Ben's aura is overflowing as if there were several dragons charging to attack Elphys, and the battle begins with a dragon-on-dragon fight until he appears behind him, ready to attack with his sword, landing a direct hit that sends Elphys crashing to the ground. The hero goes to his head and asks the dragon spirits to take the black dragon back to Doran City, then asks his colleague if he needs any help. He replies that he doesn't, as he can handle that demon locust alone, and asks him to return to the city, saying he'll join him soon. With this response, the dragon slayer begins to leave, taking the black dragon along with his spirits. The MC becomes furious and orders his swarm of locusts to break through the barrier at all costs. His familiars obey and begin attacking the shield, which cracks shortly after, leaving Carl in disbelief that the barrier is really breaking. He starts using his techniques to kill the locusts, but becomes worried because the number is colossal, and his mana is running out, so he needs to find a way to escape. Shouting for the insects to die once and for all, their numbers only increase until the massive army finally reaches him and, after covering his entire body, devours every last inch of flesh, leaving only the bones behind. At that moment, the evaluation professor tells Hanwoo that he did an excellent job completing the mission and mentions that the portal will open for his return. He asks to wait, as he can't return yet. The bald man asks if he has his mind set on rescuing that captured dragon. The MC responds that that's exactly the case since he needs to save him, because he's his contracted partner. The professor makes it clear that if he goes to the city, he won't just face Carl like before, but rather 4 heroes at once, as well as millions of armed adventurers, something that even a demigod would have a high chance of failing at, let alone a small divine being. Hanwoo says he's aware of the situation, and that's why he formally requests permission to release all the races within his divine domain to fight by his side. In exchange, he's willing to increase the difficulty of the mission by capturing the entire city of Doran. The examiner is surprised, as it takes a lot of courage to challenge an entire city, but he approves the request. With that, a portal opens, and his familiars begin to appear, along with John Feng, who is at level 140. The Red Dwarves, God's Hammer, are at level 113. The Demon Bull clan is at level 135. Lastly, and not least, the Bone Controller at level 75, the Bone Reviver at level 86, and the Skeleton Lord at level 132. He is aware that there are many adventurers in the city, and while his familiars are strong in combat power, they are still few in number, so he imagines he needs to find a way to keep those low-level adventurers away. He then asks his locust to send a message to the allied monsters. Meanwhile, in the forest, a wolf is gathered with the goblins, saying that the black dragon is dead, so there's no point in the alliance, and also says it's ridiculous for a small locust servant to have come to invite them to rush to the city to rescue him, suggesting they should just kill him and take the power crystals. No sooner does he say this than his head is cut off, leaving the goblins scared and confused. Hanwoo laments this bunch of ants, since not only do they lack honor, but they also want to kill him, threatening them all, as it seems they are looking for death. One of the goblins asks how he dares to do this, considering they are already vassals of the Black Dragon. Hanwoo simply unleashes a wave of energy that throws him violently to the ground, adding that he's not asking them to attack the city, but commanding it, making it clear that disobedience will result in death. Immediately they all bow, praising their god and saying they are ready to follow orders. With this conclusion, the MC orders all under his command to attack the city. At this moment, the Black Dragon is imprisoned inside the city. An adventurer approaches the Dragon Slayer, saying that the ceremony to execute the dragon has already been organized in the square, and also mentions that Rose asked why Carl hasn't returned yet. He ponders this, as it really has been 12 hours, and the wind hero hasn't appeared yet. With this in mind, he says that perhaps the boy was delayed on the way, and, after the ceremony, he will personally go after him. No sooner does he say this than he is startled by a sound. It was the city guards announcing that a massive horde of monsters is attacking the city, asking all adventurers to prepare to fight, except for the women and children who should seek shelter underground. It also warns that it's possible to see that the monsters are Ents, goblins, and others. All the monsters are united. The guards shout for the mages to use magic to bring down the flying monsters as quickly as possible. But just as they say this, they get several arrows to the chest. The attacks came from the Locust Men. The mages counterattack with their spells, but despite the large explosions, the locusts simply fly away. Meanwhile, a large goblin wields a hammer and strikes the gate hard to knock it down. Hanwoo immediately orders his skeleton commanders to attack while reviving a new army. They promptly obey and begin to revive those who died in battle and soon charge toward the humans. Finally, the big orc manages to knock down the gate. Rose was already waiting on the other side for this to happen. She summons several thorny vines that head toward the giant goblin, trapping it. Then, the Dragon Slayer appears, setting everything on fire, preventing the goblins from invading due to the flames. Meanwhile, Gordon orders the adventurers to hold their positions. The mages prepare and fire their powerful attacks, causing several explosions where the goblins were. Ben, who is near the Black Dragon, asks the adventurers to successfully repel the invaders and, as a reward, promises to give a show of slaughter with that dragon. The MC wastes no time and asks the Bone Controller to take action. He positions himself beside the numerous bones on the battlefield, and a new body begins to materialize, forming the giant skeleton. It moves toward the burning vines, grabbing one and pulling it out, clearing the way for the entire army to enter the city. Hanwoo is with them and yells at Elphys, who is present, to save him. At that moment, the dragon opens its eyes and asks how he managed to get there. The heroes watch from afar, wondering how he dares to cause so much trouble. Gordon leaps, flying to attack, shouting that miserable monsters were made to be pulverized, yelling for him to die once and for all. However, the demon bull appears, delivering a solid blow, asking how he dares insult his god. Rose decides to help, summoning her thorny vines, but a red dwarf appears with his divine hammer and counters, setting all the vines on fire. While she wonders what the hell just happened, Ben is also displeased with the turn of events, as only a few minutes were left, and asks how he dares ruin the plans like this. He then summons his dragon spirits and orders them to die immediately. One of them prepares to devour Hanwoo, but the giant skeleton appears, landing a solid blow. The dragon tries to retaliate, and the two begin exchanging blows. The skeleton lord, observing this, simply says he's very hungry and immediately leaps onto the dragon's back, biting it. The dragon can only scream in pain since it cannot attack its own back. At that moment, Ben appears, yelling how a mere skeleton dares to try and devour the dragon's soul, and asks if it's looking to die, delivering a solid blow that sends the skeleton lord crashing to the ground, even knocking its arms off. However, its body immediately reassembles, and it leaps again, biting the dragon's body once more, while the hero stands in disbelief at what he's witnessing, asking what kind of monster this is. Hanwoo immediately summons the greedy wolf and asks him to bite the chains. Elphys tells his trusted partner that he has the word of the great black dragon, that he will always remember this act of kindness. He then asks to serve him for a few more 100 years to repay this favor, asking him to eat some black crystals to regain his strength. Suddenly, something catches his attention, and looking back, he sees the red dwarf, Divine Hammer, being brutally attacked by the vines. He immediately shouts for his army to help, realizing that things cannot continue like this, or he will be completely annihilated. Elphys calls his dear friend, saying he would like to give him a gift by granting him his own name. So from now on, Hanwoo will also be the great rebel. He then casts a spell with his eyes. The system informs that the rebel has been acquired, but the effects are still unknown. The MC, feeling all this power in his body, targets the Dragon Slayer and charges full force into the attack, landing a blow that, although blocked, causes the hero to bleed from the devastating force of the strike. The Skeleton Lord, who was nearby, takes advantage of this distraction and delivers a solid hit, piercing Ben's chest. After finishing him off, he begins to summon his dead body, and a heroic mutant life form appears. The Blood Skeleton. The MC, losing patience, delivers a flying kick to Rose, sending her crashing to the ground. Furious, she says she can't believe the Dragon Slayer is dead. Hanwoo tells her not to worry, as she'll be next, and tells the Hammer of God that it's time for revenge for the attacks he received from that woman. He thanks his god, and with his hammer, approaches the heroine, finishing her off instantly. The MC now looks at the other battles, and finds Jian Feng fighting a hero. He decides to help by striking, but his attack is blocked. However, this distraction gives his familiar an opening to get close and land a blow, sending the hero flying and knocking him out on the ground. Gordon panics when he sees all his friends falling and runs in desperation. However, someone steps in front of him. It's the Blood Skeleton Ben. The hero freezes, terrified to see his friend like this, but because of that, the Demon Bull gets close and finishes him off with his club. With this outcome, the MC orders the entire monster army to sweep the city and bring anything they find to the crystals. The goblins celebrate, wishing long life to their master. Hanwoo asks his dragon friend to recover soon. Elphys thanks him for his concern and says he's willing to follow him. At that moment, the examiner professor contacts him, congratulating Hanwoo for completing the mission and creating a miracle, informing him that the teleport portal is ready and that he has 3 hours to organize the war spoils. He thanks him and asks if he could build a stable portal to his divine realm from there, offering to trade all the war spoils for it. The professor says it's understandable to want to build a good civilization, but asks if he has thought about the potential risks. As if he's not careful, his divine realm could be violated. Hanwoo replies that he has considered all of this. The professor agrees and says that within 10 days, he will help stabilize the portal. 10 days later, Hanwoo tells the Skeleton Lord that he will leave Duolong under his command, leaving the Skeleton Tribe and the Demon Bull Tribe to protect it and prevent professional adventurers from counterattacking. He asks that if the city cannot be saved at some point, they should just teleport back to the Divine Realm without losing many familiars. He says he understands the instructions. With everything settled, the portal opens for Hanwoo to return, and upon arriving at school, he begins walking down the hallway when the teacher asks what happened to his eyes. He doesn't quite understand the question and decides to check with his phone camera, noticing that his eyes are black and yellow, and he suspects it's because of his special profession, Rebel. Deciding to access the system to check the current information, when he tries to learn more about the Rebel talent, he is blocked by a notification stating that he must at least reach the semi-god level to qualify to view this talent, which he finds annoying since he is still far from that. At this moment, the bald teacher appears, informing that Hanwoo successfully completed the test and received a recommendation to Jinxie Academy, but still needs to meet certain conditions to enroll. He explains that one of these conditions is having special abilities and fulfilling at least 2 out of 4 requirements that will count. First, family cores as elite life forms naturally born. Second, create a heroic life form. Third, have 4 or more divinity points. Fourth, possess a saint or lord life form. He emphasizes that 2 of these conditions have already been met, so only 2 more are needed to be admitted to Western University as a reserve student. The MC doesn't like this at all, as they are quite difficult requirements. But the teacher simply asks him to work hard since the university's doors are open. Hanwoo decides to ask Tianwen if there's any way to quickly obtain divinity points, and he responds that it's too late now, As if he had asked a day earlier, he could have even saved some divinity, but now he has already used it all. He explains that in 28 days at school, Hanwoo could be rewarded with 1 divinity point, asking him to please stop giving that suspicious look. He swears on his own honor that he is telling the truth. After that, in the divine realm, he doesn't see many options and slams his hand on the ground, creating the enormous tornado of life sacrifice. However, he gains a total of 0 divinity points, thinking it would be better to try again the next day. The same happens the following day, and it keeps happening until a week later. He laments, as he once had a divinity card in his hands but didn't value it, trading it for 150 million divine power, and now he regrets it. He says that if he ever gets another chance, he will hold onto the card tightly to avoid selling it. At this moment, a notification arrives in his system. It's Yuan, calling for his master, and asking if he has already received the sacred relic source that is part of that day. He is aware that this person is a true god, and maybe could even lend him some divinity. With this in mind, he asks if he could borrow a few points. The guy receives the message and thinks about it, knowing that his master is not a true god, but maybe at least a senior semi-god, wondering if perhaps he doesn't intend to pay it back, although he couldn't offend this great person. Sending back a response, the MC is pleased to see that he received a gift and didn't expect it to be so fast. However, upon opening it, he notices that it's the ruins of the Divine Ravine and asks what the hell that is, deciding to check some information online. The ruins of the Divine Ravine are a place abandoned by divine civilization, where radiation caused by excessive research turns life forms into mutant monsters. These monsters consume radioactive minerals, which crystallize in their bodies, forming gene stones. These stones are valuable and used to cultivate familiars, popular among semi-gods and true gods. Hanwoo is surprised since his new colleague really thought big, as it's something that allows a divine being to compete with semi-gods and true gods for the gene stone, and he wonders how many points this ticket will yield. He then checks out some artificial mutant beast farms, feeling pleased since he owns a decomposition machine. So, the low-quality radioactive minerals can be refined, and if these beasts eat them, they would undergo rapid mutation and condense genetic stones. Because of this, he decides to visit a city outside the divine realm. He is wearing his mask, as he is not familiar with the place, so safety must come first. At this moment, a person approaches, assuming the MC is visiting the ruins of the Divine River for the first time, and says that he will need an honest and reliable guide. Hanwoo thinks about it and asks for at least one reason to hire him. He says he knows the 18 gathering spots of mutant beasts in the ruins, and that each place has unique characteristics. He also explains that he knows all the supply points in the city, knowing who is honest, who is cunning, who loves to play tricks, ensuring he will get genetic stones at a good price. The MC says that's good enough, as he just wants to know if there's a merchant around who can sell radiation ore. The man gives a mysterious smile, understanding better the reason for his visit, and says that maybe he doesn't know, but recently a god king bought a lower-grade radiation ore, causing the mutant beasts to die before even completing their mutations. And the breeding farm, which had been invested with 1 trillion divine powers, ended up in ruins. At that moment, someone says that the person simply didn't buy from him, making the MC turn to see who spoke. The person greets him, saying his name is Heiko. The blonde guy says that person is the biggest mine boss in the ruins of the Divine River. He smiles and says he really is the biggest dealer in that city, as more than 70% of the radiation ore in the entire place is his, and he assures there are no low-quality products. The MC asks for some samples, as he needs to test them in the divine realm, requesting 10,000 divine powers of each purity of ore. Heiko says it's not a problem. After that, in the Divine Ravine ruins, the MC is in possession of 21 radiant ores for the cost of 40,000 divine powers, thinking it's a good price but not knowing exactly the effectiveness, as he will need to test first. At this moment, a level 1 mutant beast approaches. He immediately notices that it must be a wild wolf that underwent some mutation, and apparently their lifespan is only 20 days. And to live longer, they need to consume radiation ore to get stronger. Realizing it's the perfect moment to test the radiation ore, he asks his Pikachu to advance. The wolf runs and starts licking the ore on the ground. Immediately, a horn begins to grow on its forehead, and its whole body grows exponentially, completely changing its appearance. The MC is surprised witnessing this, as with just one lick, it reached level 2, deciding to throw a new ore into the wolf's mouth, which, upon devouring it, again changes its appearance, becoming even more powerful. Hanwoo admits being surprised, as it took only 10 minutes for the mutation to rise from level 2 to 3, and he wonders what would happen if he used it on his familiars in the divine realm. Then, the wolf explodes, and a red ore drops on the spot. He notes that radiation indeed seems risky, and mutations must be handled with caution, as they can explode due to the power, since the side effects are obvious. He notices that the gene stone dropped. It requires level 3 permission to be carried into the divine realm. Its effect is to induce genetic mutations in the teeth of familiars, resulting in large and long teeth. The side effect is that it reduces the lifespan of the mutated familiars by 3 years. Suddenly, someone appears, saying that if the boy is smart, he will hand over the genetic stone and the other green stone. Otherwise, he will regret it. The MC turns and can't believe who he is seeing, as it is the demigod gang, father of the first student he faced at school, and he wonders how he ended up running into this person, feeling relieved to be wearing the disguise mask. Because of this, he asks what will happen if he doesn't hand over the stones. The man says he might die, summoning several wolves that stand ready to attack. Hanwoo immediately bites his hand and activates his black dragon transformation. The wolves are startled by this, but it's too late, as the MC begins to attack them one by one. The demigod activates his enhancement in the art of the god of fury, asking the wolf cavalry to attack again. The animals obey and begin to run, but he just jumps, leaving the wolves confused since his target is now flying in the sky, making it impossible for them to reach him. The MC calls the old man an idiot, asking what he will do about this. Gang finds this trick petty and asks how he dares to show off like that, raising his hand and using his magic to force him down. The MC feels his body being pulled and goes straight to the ground, making him realize that the demigods really have many tricks up their sleeves. Being forced to flee as he is chased by the wolves until he notices a sign that says, "Do not approach." He decides to head in that direction, and the demigod tells his cavalry to stop. Only then does Hanwoo realize the reason for that sign, as there are several bizarre mutants in the vicinity, and he worries because they are moving in for the attack. He starts running again since all those monsters seem like trouble, and concludes that running is the best strategy he has. At that moment, the beast noticed the presence of the wolves, and begin to attack them. Gang doesn't let this go and counterattacks with his punch, finishing off the mutants that were there and asking where the hell the boy went until he looks to the side, sensing a slightly frightening aura, and for that reason decides to leave. At this moment, the MC is in front of a river, relieved to have managed to escape and dying of thirst. At this moment, a fish approaches and jumps out, startling him with the shit he is seeing since it's a fish with legs, meaning that the river is also full of radioactive waste. He then decides to look at the map, wanting to find a river, but realizes that he is lost. At this moment, more mutants are approaching, and he tries to calm down since he's there anyway, so it's better to gain some more genetic stones, throwing his red stones at the monsters. After they eat, they all explode, and he realizes that it's not so difficult to obtain the genetic ores. After a while, already at night, the MC worries since it's getting dark and it's not safe at this hour in nature. imagining that he should go to the top of the mountain since it seems like there's something there. Because as far as he knows, that area is abandoned, so there should be buildings with no one inside, as it's safer to rest in an abandoned building than in the forest. Transforming into a black dragon and flying to the location, as he approaches, he notices that it's actually an abandoned castle, and as he walks, he realizes that the place is deserted, but is aware that he needs to be careful since there could be wild animals living inside. He then notices some papers lying on the ground and seems to sense an energy fluctuation coming from within. Upon checking what it is, he sees some people performing a kind of ritual and wonders what the hell this means. One of the men in black comments that, despite being condemned for investment failures, the God King paid the price of hundreds of billions of divine power to create the opportunity for that ceremony, so the operation must be successful, stressing that time is almost up, so they should proceed with the ceremony at once. The night passes, and the stones are positioned in a magic circle. A huge light rises above the castle, and the magic circle becomes gigantic in the air. They are happy since this means it worked, as they have definitely managed to touch the seal of the ancient civilization. The MC worries about this since the internet says that the project for that location had been abandoned and sealed by the divine civilization due to its high risk factor. And apparently, the rumors were true, since the God King used the mutant beast farm as a front while secretly researching a ritual to break the seal. He decides to sneak closer, pleased that the ruins have restrictions, since only beings with a divinity below 10 can enter. And probably the fact that the God King cannot enter makes things easier. The beasts begin to look at the sky as something is happening. Suddenly, a warning notification appears, stating that it has been detected that the unlocker is not a superior warrior of the Kamigawa civilization and is considered an intruder. Therefore, the unlocking is suspended, activating anti-theft mode and releasing the Class 6 mutant, the Gamora. In addition, it is informed that the formation has been obstructed and the source of the mutation has forcibly broken the seal and is currently being suppressed. This causes the heads of those responsible for the ritual to start aching. Hanwoo is confused, wondering what the hell is happening for the people to be like this. At this moment, something emerges, greeting the lovely players present and stating that it is the source of the mutation and would like to thank them for helping him free himself from the chains, weakening the seal. Because of this, he will give a gift that will actually make them become a vessel. Everyone starts to panic, asking who the hell he is. The monster explains that unfortunately, only one can become the vessel and asks them to play a little game. Then, a strong green glow appears, and this being begins to walk towards everyone. The source of the mutation explains that the objective of the game is to cultivate a mutant beast capable of defeating the Class 6 mutant beast, and that he will give each one 10,000 units of high-purity radiation ore, which will be used as test subjects for their familiars. One guy responds that he has no interest in becoming a vessel and demands to be released immediately, and if not, he will free the familiars from the dominion of God to completely destroy that place, deciding to do so right as he speaks. However, he gets frustrated since, for some reason, he cannot connect to the divine realm. Then, Gamora appears and devours this man, fully manifesting at the location in front of everyone. At this moment, the MC politely asks for permission and explains that he cannot communicate with the divine realm alone, so he cannot summon the familiars for the test. Everyone is startled, asking who the hell the kid is and why he is there. The source of the mutation states that he will not regret this mutation and invokes the portal to the divine realm, leaving him worried as things have become complicated, since the setup was made so that it is only possible to take the familiars out of the realm, but he himself cannot enter, so he will not be able to escape. 3 hours pass, and one guy comments that the situation is not good at all, as most of his familiars died after consuming the radiation ore, and only 10% improve slightly. Another comments that, unfortunately, less than 20% of his familiars are still alive. Meanwhile, the MC comments that the decomposer is a true gem, as 6,000 high-purity radiation crystals were obtained, and it only took the sacrifice of 100 million locusts to produce them. Because of this, his mutant beast is at level 3, and he says he is counting on his familiar since it has a strong recovery power, asking it not to be shy since all those crystals are just for it. 3 months pass, and the cultists cannot believe what they are seeing, asking if the kid is some kind of monster. He says this while observing the Class 6 mutant beast that the MC created during this time. The source of the mutation gets excited and asks Gamora to go for the test. The monster turns and starts devouring one of the monsters without much difficulty. Then, the green monster warns that losers cannot continue living and orders Gamora to devour all the cultists, making them scream in despair while they are already inside the mutant's mouth. Next, it's the MC's turn to show what he is capable of. Hanwoo is aware that he had to give many gene stones, and with this, his familiar underwent excessive mutation, but he laments that now its life will not last more than a day, asking it to show what it can do. The source of the mutation says that it is getting excited and tells Gamora to go for the attack. The two begin to run, and the locust starts launching its attack. Godzilla gets furious and retaliates with a headbutt. Chiang, which is the name of this mutant grasshopper, decides to fly, and his body immediately begins to regenerate. Just like Gamora, who screams furiously activating his power, the green mutant says it really wasn't too bad, as he ended up provoking the opponent, and it will definitely be a good show to watch. The fight between the two lasts an incredible 18 hours, until it ends with the mutant grasshopper as the victor. The source of the mutation says it was definitely an excellent confrontation, calling the MC a dear receptacle. He asks what the hell it is talking about and which operator it belongs to, wanting to know what it intends to do with that pure body. The monster begins to use its power, saying that from now on, they will share the same body. Hanwoo panics, as he wasn't expecting this, until everything disappears, wondering if he is dead. He then sees the system screen showing that this is Hanwoo, the source of the mutation, in addition to informing all his current statistics. He only focuses on the name, as it is saying it is the source of the mutation, and a green aura asks if his dear receptacle is awake. He asks who it is, and if, by any chance, it is the source of the mutation. It answers that yes, it is indeed a superior gene, and asks for thanks. As with this parasitism, it will grant many powers beyond divine civilization. It also mentions that it has overwritten the growth acceleration ability, as direct mutation is more suitable, and asks not to worry about safety, as they are one and should help each other, saying that he can call it Kamigawa for now. The MC asks not to waste time with so much information, as he only wants to know how the hell to get out of there. It explains that it is simple, as the seal was controlled and the guardian beast is dead, so they are free, being teleported to the castle where it all began. Kamigawa states that there is just one problem, as the breaking of the seal made a lot of noise, and that attracted the attention of many demigods and true gods. Hanwoo panics, as he should have said this earlier, and asks how they can get out, then has an idea to activate the blood arena coordinates. Since he is an affiliate, the demigods start running toward the castle, as they felt an aura, and upon entering, they scream that they want the treasure. However, they find nothing in the place, thinking this is strange. Gang, who is with the demigods, finds the body of a grasshopper and wonders if it is the person he is thinking of. After that, someone returns to the castle asking who the hell stole his treasure, ordering everyone to continue sending signals day and night to locate the seed. After this, in the bloody arena, the MC notices that teleportation costs 1 million divine power, wondering what will happen if he goes back to school. At this moment, the system appears, stating that it has been challenged by another divine being, the evil dragon. and asks if he wishes to accept the challenge. It also reminds him that by refusing the challenge 3 times, or failing, he will lose his status as the heir of the bloody arena. This cheap intimidation irritates him, and he asks if a beating is what it wants. Then, he will deliver it. He accepts the challenge and immediately crosses the portal. The big screen warns the competitors to prepare, while the entire audience shouts that the evil dragon will prevail. On the other hand, there is also support for the locusts, urging them not to disappoint. Additionally, they shout to send the bone controller and make the evil dragon fear the giant skeleton. Hanwoo hears the crowd betting 500,000 divine power on the dragon's victory and asks them not to cry after losing so much money. Palme, the evil dragon, finds this amusing, since the main race of his opponent is locusts, who take advantage of an army of skeletons to cheat. But this time, it will be different, as he has found an opponent worthy of him. The MC starts by summoning his swarm, asking for less talk and more action. Palme agrees and summons his army of half-dragons. The battle begins between the dragons and the locust men, but this doesn't please him, and he questions whether he is being underestimated, as he wants to see the army of skeletons. Hanwoo asks him to first defeat the army of locusts. Otherwise, it isn't even worth showing the skeletons. This leaves his opponent furious, and he orders the dragons to unleash their flames. Meanwhile, the MC shouts for his army to defend themselves, simultaneously summoning the celestial demon locust, which moves silently and appears shooting attacks at the dragons. Palm commands the counterattack, summoning the half-dragon hero to also shoot arrows at the cursed locusts. He mocks, saying that all this resistance is useless since they are nothing but locusts and will die like nothing. Hanwoo is pleased with this, as his goal is to sacrifice them, wondering if he should summon his army of demonic bulls. He raises his hand to summon the army of the divine realm, but Kamigawa appears, asking how the hell he is enduring these insults, causing him to doubt the choice of operator. He asks what she means by that, and the source of mutation responds that she wants to see the locust race teach the half-dragon's idiot a lesson. The MC says that, unfortunately, they are no match against dragons. The green slime asks if the locusts are weak by chance, reminding him who devoured the 6th-level grimoire, since with the mutation source she possesses, there are no weak races, only races that are content with self-destruction. Then asking him to use the directional mutation ability granted to finish off this arrogant dragon. He calls one of his locusts, imagining that he doesn't want to follow this advice, although he wants to test this new ability. A yellow aura begins to emerge in the area, and the mutation source asks in which direction he wants his familiars to mutate. Hanwoo comments that that kind of locust is suitable to be a tank, so he wants to make them more resistant to damage to replace other members of his species. The first option is armor mutation, which makes the bodies of the immolated locust thicker and more resistant, enduring up to 10 times physical damage, reducing their lifespan by 50 days. The second option is gland mutation, which causes the glands of the immolated locust to mutate to secrete a large amount of mucus, increasing their resistance to elemental attacks at the cost of 90 days of lifespan. Lastly, the total mutation directs the locusts to mutate, increasing their size and strength at the cost of 24 hours of their lifespan. He imagines that the half-dragon's attacks are fierce, and many locusts die every second, so if he wants to resist, he needs to take risks, thus choosing the third option. Immediately, his immolated locust mutates and becomes gigantic, charging at the dragons, which, on the first strike, throw them far away. He is pleased with the great result, and asks his immolated locusts to accept the mutation. All the locusts begin to grow, mutating their entire bodies. The same happens with the demonic locusts, since the MC ordered them to accept the mutation as well. Because of this, they can now make multiple shots and attack at full speed. Palm doesn't understand what the hell is happening, and asks if the army has taken any steroids, questioning where the referee is, since it's clearly cheating. Hanwoo laughs at this, and asks his locust men to accept the mutation. With that, they create armor all over their bodies and begin to frantically attack the half-dragons, who are forced to retreat. He then orders them to completely annihilate the half-dragon hero, but his opponent falls to the ground, asking him not to do that as he is surrendering. The gamblers shout indignantly as they bet 500,000 divine power, and the garbage made them lose everything. The MC loves hearing this since he warned they would cry after losing the bet. With this victory, he obtains another fragment of the divine realm, as well as a mark in the bloody arena. After that, in Hanwoo's divine realm, he is presented with the special bloody arena building, where the family members can enhance their skills. The winner has the chance to be promoted, and there's a small chance that the hero model's guidance will be ignored, allowing the extraordinary life form to be directly promoted to a heroic life form. He notices that defeating an heir changed from an extremely small chance to a very small chance. Being surprised by this absurdity, he is also surprised by the core of the divine realm, as it is brighter than before. The source of the mutation asks why he is surprised by so little, as, compared to his value there, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Hanwoo agrees, saying that the chief is correct and that it will definitely improve more. Kamigawa replies that this is correct and asks him to kneel. This stresses him out, imagining that when he becomes more powerful, he will definitely kill that filthy green slime. He then activates his life sacrifice to see what reward he will get this time. The first option is a level 4 relic, the Armor of Temperance. Once charged in the Divine Domain's core, the clan can gain the ability to summon the armor. The second option is a level 3 building, the Observatory. Established in the Divine Realm, it allows clear observation of situations 10,000 kilometers away. The third option is the Book of Production of Flesh Puppets. Use the flesh and blood of powerful creatures to create a flesh puppet with powerful biological characteristics. When a puppet is created, its strength and ability are constant and cannot be enhanced. He thinks the last option is amazing, deciding to choose it, wondering if he will get a great upgrade this time. Half a year passes inside the Divine Realm, 10 days outside. The MC imagines that the investment of 10 million divine power was very worthwhile, as just looking at his new creation makes his eyes shine. He imagines that the strength of this flesh puppet is equivalent to that of one of the strongest heroic life forms, also noting that it is as resilient as a wolf, naming his new army member Chiang. He then imagines that it is time to face the real challenge, telling his grandfather that he has already entered the Imperial University of the West, but asks him not to worry, as he will still go to the Chaos Star University to get news about his father. 3 days later, at the Imperial University, he is surprised by the place, asking if it is really the best university available, as even the passers-by on the streets, more than half of them are emitting demigod power. At that moment, someone catches his attention, asking if he is Hanwoo, the reserve student from the Imperial University. He turns and replies that, yes, he is. The man greets him and says he is there to pick him up, politely asking him to follow him to the aircraft, as he will take him to his new accommodation. He decides to follow, and they leave through the air. After flying for a while, they arrive at the location, and the man informs him that he will take him to the dormitory. The MC is curious about the place and asks where the other students are. The professor replies that this place is just for him, leaving Hanwoo in disbelief, as this is far too extravagant. The man bids farewell, wishing him a good rest, and reminding him to arrive on time tomorrow. He decides to absorb divinity quickly, as there must be many talented people in that place. The next day, he continues walking through the hallways while hearing gossip from people saying there is a new transfer student who is probably just trash, as good students pass through the special process smoothly and do not need to enter through the back doors. Hearing this makes him worried, as those people are clearly trying to pressure him down. Hardly thinking about it, he gets startled when he sees a woman approaching stealthily, asking if he is Hanwoo. She explains that she is the teacher of the reserve student class, asking him to call her Lena, and offers to show him where the classroom is. The two enter as she asks everyone to be quiet. Qin Shuang, who studies at that university and in that class, shouts Hanwu's name. The other students, seeing this, ask what is happening. As it appears, the goddess knows the boy who entered through the back doors. The teacher demands silence, informing that the new classmate's name is Hanwu and that he used to study at the same school as Qin Shuang. A boy, dissatisfied, shouts, wanting to know why the new student was admitted to the reserve class. The teacher begins by saying that she doesn't know exactly what he learned at other schools, but makes it clear that in her class, one must raise their hand before saying a word, and if they don't understand, she will find a way to teach them very well. She says this with her frightening gaze. This terrifies the student, who apologizes, as he shouldn't have asked a question so hastily. She says it's fine, asking him not to make any more violations, in addition to suggesting they ask Hanwu himself how he got a spot in the reserve class. Zudi, careful not to irritate the teacher, asks Hanwu if he would mind saying how he got into the reserve class, as he wants to challenge him to see if he is truly worthy of being there. The MC raises his hand and says he will need to decline. This infuriates him, calling the MC trash for not being man enough to accept a simple challenge. Furthermore, the whole class supports him, calling him a coward. At that moment, Qin Shuang slams her hand on the table and tells them to stop, saying that Hanwu has never provoked anyone, so she wants to know why they are slandering him without even knowing him. The MC just watches, imagining that it was to be expected from Qin Shuang, as no matter where she goes, she always finds a bunch of little dogs. Moments later, the teacher leaves the room, and a group heads toward the MC's desk. However, his friend steps in front, asking what they are doing and requesting that they go over her first if they want to intimidate someone. They inform her that the matter has absolutely nothing to do with her, asking her to please get out of the way, and calling Hanwu, saying that if he has the courage, he should not hide behind a woman. He takes a deep breath and stands up. At this moment, Zudi approaches, saying that a mere transfer student who entered through the back doors shouldn't be studying there, in addition to accusing him of not even being qualified to study with everyone. Because of this, he asks him to leave the reserve class, warning that otherwise, he will beat him until he does. The MC turns to Qin Shuang and says that it must be quite difficult to study with that bunch of idiots. She replies that they are usually normal and does not know why they are only picking on him. Hanwu thinks this is good since she apparently doesn't know them very well, so she can beat them without a guilty conscience. She asks not to underestimate Zudi, since his main relative is a rare and naturally elite Iron Man, imagining that even her Thunder Sparrow might not be a match. He replies that if she's afraid of seeing them get hurt, then that's fine, but she says she doesn't care. The student asks if he heard correctly about hurting him, since just a few simple relatives would be enough to eliminate the rookie from existence. Asking to go to the training field, Qin Shuang doesn't understand why Hanwu is so stubborn and wonders how she could help without hurting his self-esteem. After they arrive at the location, the system politely asks them to choose the battle method. The options are Heroic Battle, Extraordinary Battle, Elite Battle, Legion Battle, 5 against 5, and 10 against 10. He notices that there are various ways to fight, asking to go with 10 against 10 since it's a good opportunity to test his 10 strongest relatives. The two position themselves in the battle arena, and Zudi is unsure whether his opponent is arrogant or simply ignorant for not choosing the Legion battle, but rather 10 against 10. The MC immediately starts invoking his flesh puppets, which shocks his opponent, who asks what the hell that is, as it is indeed a form of heroic life but exudes a strange aura. For this reason, he decides to take it seriously, as he can't embarrass himself in front of his goddess. Deciding to summon his Iron Men, he notes that it is a formation difficult even for Lord-level warriors to face. Outside, Qin Shuang watches on the big screen and asks when Hanwu got those relatives. Next to her is a boy using his eye to check the battle information, stating that Hanwoo is actually using puppets, all equivalent to a form of heroic life, and he doesn't understand how he's going to use something of that level in this battle. Other students comment that he must really be rich, as he created 10 puppets at once, knowing that just one of them must be worth around 30 million divine power, wondering if that money is the reason he can enter through the back doors. She starts reflecting and doesn't understand how someone completely alone, without any support, managed to get so much money, thinking it's better not to dwell on it since she just wants to watch and can ask about it later. The battle begins with Zudi ordering his Iron Men to attack, starting with delivering several maximum power punches. He warns that they will soon hear the monsters turning into toothpaste, but the MC taunts him, asking if he's sleeping or can't take it anymore. He doesn't understand this provocation, but when he looks back at the arena, he sees his soldiers being subdued, being punched one by one with extreme ease, forcing the robots to go completely defensive. The students can't comprehend what kind of monsters these are that can resist the attacks of the Iron Men, and not only that, but they counterattack, copying the same move, even injuring the robots severely. Qin Shuang doesn't hide her surprise, as she is witnessing Hanwoo much stronger than before. Meanwhile, the MC bored asks if the little girl wants to continue. This infuriates him since he hasn't even used the trump card he has saved, asking his Iron Men to merge. Hanwoo finds this amusing, since now the robots will combine, asking if the little boy watched a lot of Transformers when he was young. The relatives now have a completely different design, making the MC feel nauseous, as there's too much shine to process. The arena starts to explode until the big robot finally forms, causing Zudi to burst into laughter, asking if he's scared now, as his new piece of art has 10 times the attack power of a common Iron Man, asking him to die already. The robot prepares and starts running, attacking all the puppets at the same time. He warns that he will show the true strength of someone from the reserve class of the greatest university of all time. The MC mocks, asking if he is that strong, but Zudi gives a second chance, warning that if he hears a plea for forgiveness on his knees, he will spare the remaining members of his clan, and makes it clear that the offer is valid for 10 seconds, starting the countdown. However, Hanwoo says the number 0 and wants to see what will happen since the countdown is over. This irritates the boy, asking not to be blamed later for what will happen. He barely says this and becomes scared, as all the MC's monsters simply healed. Then, they jump and begin to attack the metal armor, biting from one side and tearing off the cables from the entire armor. The students watching come to the conclusion that the fight is brutal as well as humiliating, since even the robot's head was torn off. Shudi falls to the ground screaming that this is simply impossible, while the MC just exits the portal victorious. Qin Shuang is about to say something, but another person calls for the grasshopper boy. He turns to see who it is, and the guy hugs him, saying he was sure he would pass the academy test, as he knew he wouldn't disappoint him after recommending him. He notices that it's Xian Meng and asks how the hell he looks decades younger. The mammoth man is happy that he recognized him, saying he just changed his look, shaving his beard, as his previous appearance intimidated the girls a lot. The other students overhear this conversation and apologize, as they didn't know he was a recommended student and accused him of pulling strings to get in. He asked them not to worry, as everything is fine. Xian Meng warns that he is a first year at the Imperial University and also Hanwoo's protector. He makes it clear that anyone who dares to mess with the boy will be messing with him, taking the MC to another place, as he has some friends to introduce. After going up the stairs, he informs his two friends that he is with the boy they mentioned. Ziaxian introduces himself, saying he is a freshman at the academy and that it is a pleasure to meet him. The girl does the same, saying her name is Yelling and asking if he really defeated Xian Meng in the arena. He greets the two seniors, saying that he is a rookie at the university and that defeating their friend was pure luck. She makes it clear that having luck is also a strength, sharing that they discovered that the next class of the reserved class will be a survival simulation in Outland, the zombie city, a low-level secret realm. And with that said, she expresses her wish for him to bring something for them. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.